Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Fem-Naruto received Dragon Contract. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Going back home as she launched an earth spear, resembling a javelin, at a wall of earth with numerous earth spears arranged in a whirlpool, Naruto let out another sigh that seemed to be the 100th of the day. Naruto exclaimed, "Bringing out iron is impossible, sensei," as she turned to face Jiraiya, who was teaching a shadow clone high-level sealing. Jiraiya told the girl, who had immediately figured out how to manipulate the earth when she submerged her entire body in it and moved around it like a fish, "You already at average level with Inferno and Ice, so iron shouldn't be that hard. She can only be stopped from passing through by water and stone or denser materials." He reasoned that she could overcome more difficult situations with practice. Naruto, who had no idea how to extract iron from the earth, asked, "You have any idea on how to get iron out of earth?" "I don't know. I remember this one man during the war with Iwa was able to do iron techniques. I'm not sure how he did it, but he did it. It wasn't a bloodline I know of. My guess is that he has it a high-level earth manipulation to us iron." Jiraiya stated to Naruto that he gave her could. Jiraiya told her, and Naruto summarized it by saying, "So he just practiced and practiced until he got it by accident." Naruto shook her head and palmed it, saying, "Exactly." As she made 3 shadow clones to practice getting iron so she could consider her options, Naruto remarked, "This is just stupid." The 3 shadow clones saluted and rehearsed manipulating the earth. "You 3 carry on where I left off, okay?" As she sat on the ground and observed the 3 shadow clones draw earthen spears, Naruto nodded, using the shadow clone. When Naruto first practiced earth manipulation a week ago, she found it to be simple. Her simple act of drawing a sword from the ground was a good beginning. Later, Tia taught her how to make an earth dragon, raise it up, dig a hole in the ground, make an earthquake, dig a pit with earth spires, and, finally, move around the earth by sinking into it without disturbing it. She learned a lot in a week, but she certainly succeeded. When Jiraiya proposed using iron rather than earth, she initially had her doubts, but Tia and Jin dispelled them by assuring her that it was feasible with only earth manipulation naturally. Tia informed her that she would not begin her earth test until she had mastered the use of iron. She is currently trying to use iron and thinking of ways to manipulate the earth. According to the few earth manipulation lessons she learned from Jiraiya, the earth has a variety of properties depending on the location. She put her hand on the ground and used earth manipulation to feel what was beneath it. While keeping that thought in mind, she can sense what's beneath the ground. Thanks to this, she started to look deeper, not farther down, but down to every single particle of dirt. After sensing that the first thing she felt was just earth, she felt foolish at that point. The most prevalent element on earth is iron. She was merely speculating like a genin with chakra when she attempted to obtain iron from her previous attempts. She must will iron out of the ground because there are specific amounts of iron in the earth. It was similar to pulling tumbleweeds by their roots. As she dragged the iron pieces from the ground to her palms, she practiced slowly gathering iron. With that in mind, she punched into the ground until she felt strong enough. Then she successfully extracted an iron spear by grabbing it and willing it into being. Naruto exclaimed, "All right." With delight at her ability to draw an iron spear, she made 3 more clones. After canceling her first 3, she saw them slowly extract iron from the ground and extract an iron spear in a matter of minutes, but she knew she needed to practice extracting iron from the ground more quickly. Naruto turned to Jiraiya, who was observing the clones as they practiced gathering iron, and said, "You figured it out." He pointed his thumb back, and Naruto saw a shadow clone instructing another shadow clone. "Shouldn't you be teaching a clone on sealing?" he asked. "The wonders of the shadow clones. Yeah, I figured out what I was doing wrong from the start." Given that he is an earth alignment and that fire and water are weaker, Jiraiya asked his student, "Want to share?" Jiraiya nodded, comprehending her meaning. "Well, from what I gathered is that iron is practically mixed in with the earth. The problem is that I was just guessing. I wasn't searching for iron components and I was just grabbing anything. Then I began searching for iron in the ground and used earth manipulation to grab them. But it takes a lot of chakra to do so. Practically anyone can use iron if they have the right training and chakra." Jiraiya said, "Give me a second." He started to walk away from Naruto and toward a tree, repeatedly hammering his head against it while uttering the word, "Stupid." He stood next to Naruto once more after he had finished beating his head. "Continue." As Jiraiya attempted to remove iron from the ground, Naruto said, "Okay. From what I summarized is that I am going to have to practice pulling out iron from the ground until it becomes second nature to me." After a few minutes, he was able to remove a ball of iron from the ground. Jiraiya screamed to the world, "Aha! Take that, Orochimaru!" as Naruto perspired and she palmed her face to avoid being seen with him. After 2 months, Jiraiya and Naruto both practiced manipulating iron and made great strides. Every method Naruto was familiar with on Earth turned to iron, and she became so skilled at manipulating the Earth that she only needs to stump her feet to make it work instead of using her hands. Although it took a long time, the effort was worthwhile. Additionally, Jiraiya converted most of his earthly techniques to iron. Jiraiya no longer needs to instruct Naruto because her seal training has advanced to that level at the tender age of 12. The girl essentially stole everything he knew about sealing. She will soon return home because the only information she needs to learn about sealing is from her father's notes, which are in Konoha. Jin's manipulation of Naruto's mental time has also caused her training with the dragons to take a significant turn, but once she leaves the area, things return to normal. Leviathan completed the Taijutsu flowing stance and the Kenjutsu current stance to a mastery level after receiving some ice manipulation training in Naruto. She produced a destructive water dragon with 5 heads after Naruto developed an ice technique that turns liquid nitrogen into a water dragon. The Rasengan was not a complete form when she added water manipulation, which only produced a tiny whirlpool. She then used it to strike a tree, completely destroying it with a spinning whirlpool that left splinters all over it. In addition to helping Naruto master the Dragon Claw stance, Volva also helped her become proficient with fire. Currently, she is working on holding the flames of Inferno, which is challenging for her. She can now will her Inferno to encircle an object thanks to an improvement in her dragon breath because she keeps getting the fire Rasengan to explode in her face. The Rasengan with fire was also challenging. She was fortunate to have tried that in her head because it would not have been a pleasant sight to see her right arm get third-degree burns. Naruto was able to learn some storm techniques from Orta. Her Riruhou appeared weaker due to storm techniques, but it is hard to control. Additionally, Orta taught Naruto how to manipulate wind to make her arms into swords. This gave her the idea to add this to her flowing stance, making it even more dangerous. She could kill someone with a single touch. Additionally, she struggled to add wind with the Rasengan, and the act of doing so caused her arm to be severed in addition to creating a wind blade that resembles a drill and can be thrown with pinpoint accuracy like a spear. She also created a disc-like wind blade that can be thrown in slices at a wide range. Even though Jin continues to give her headaches about the art of politics, she endures it because she knows that she will find this type of information helpful in the future. She kept practicing adding her Riruhou in the Rasengan, but her efforts yielded minimal results. Although it was utterly unstable, she managed to get the Riruhou into the Rasengan. It dissipated when it left her hand after she fired it in a certain direction. She is still attempting to identify the technique's flaws. She developed 2 Riruhou technique variations. Rail Slug, also known as Rirunamekuji, is a devastating close or mid-range technique. The second is the Rail Blade, or Riruken, an assassination technique that she can wield and that can penetrate through anything, including the Rasengan. Excellion is the next option. Naruto discovered that the foundation of Excellion is swiftness and rapid strikes. The quick draw is one of the methods she studied and struggled to perfect. It is a quick attack with a Z-shaped 3-slash motion that, when completed, sheaths the sword. The issue with this method is that she can complete it in a second, which is quick in comparison to the human eye, but it should take a quarter of a second. The reverse step is another technique she has learned and is working to perfect. She found the movement technique, which creates an afterimage to prevent being hit, to be quite helpful and far superior to the substitution. In 2 months, or, in her mind, 4 months, she learned all of this. And now they are once more in Naruto's thoughts, with everyone staring at the dead trees and rotting field. The other dragons nodded as Naruto whimpered, "Can we get this over with now? I want this to end." When Naruto saw Tia's hurt expression, he said, "Before you summon the dragon and ditch me." Naruto glared at the dragon she had known since she was 6 years old, saying, "Don't give me that." The girl said, "I want to know who exactly I am fighting and what do I do?" The dragon was about to respond when he stopped talking. As though he was considering it, she turned to face Jin. Tia yelled, "Hey Jin!" To the lightning dragon boss. The dragon in question pulled out a book and turned through several pages, asking, "Who exactly is the Earth Tyrant?" With his book closed, Jin remarked, "That would be Nultherion." "Really?" Tia questioned doubtfully. Jin replied, "Really?" to Tia. "Wow, good luck killing him." Naruto simply glared at the dragon, and despite her best efforts to flee, she was unable to do so because Naruto held her tightly. Tia gave Naruto a glare lesson, but she kept it to a minimum. Okay. Nultherion is known as the Earth Warden and is as vicious as Fatalis, if not more and more cunning. His special attack is the lava cannon. His skin is made out of black adamantium. He has a high control over Earth and you have to kill him. As Tia finished gathering chakra and shooting it into the ground, Naruto's expression changed to one of neutrality. His weakness is the visible heart. Having to defeat a dragon that is similar to Fatalis but more vicious, Naruto grumbled, "Okay, let's get this over with." When she turned to face Tia, She saw that she was running for the hills. Once more Naruto watched in disbelief as Tia and Jiraiya arrived at the other dragons. She sighed and turned around, waiting for the dragon to show up. It's true that the earth started to tremble like an earthquake, but Naruto used earth and chakra to stay motionless so she wouldn't be impacted. Subsequently, tiny steam eruptions emerged from the earth, and the earth started to accumulate until it appeared as though something would suddenly explode. The ground then started to tremble, forcing Naruto to use more chakra to remain motionless. She had to leap back when the earth buildup erupted, releasing lava. The volcano was still erupting when it exploded completely outwards, sending flaming rocks of lava everywhere, and Naruto had to avoid getting struck by tiny lava balls the dragon Tia had told her then exploded from the dragon-shaped volcano. It resembles Fatalis but is more resilient. It has enormous wings on its back and skin that resembles black jagged rocks. When it roared at her, she was surprised to see how full of lava its mouth was. It has a flaming orange chest that looks like it has been opened since the dragon's chest was fully exposed, and, as Tia had promised, she could actually see its heart. She questioned how it was still alive. As Nultherion leapt at her and slashed at her, causing her to fall to the ground, Naruto swiftly performed hand seals. That thing moved so quickly as she prepared her Riruhou technique and aimed it at the dragon's arms. Naruto swore in her mind she had to sigh in shock when it simply bounced off the dragon's skin and struck a rock, causing an explosion. Adamantium. She made it seem difficult, but I have no idea what that is. She performed hand seals in order to prevent being clawed again. Naruto willed a water dragon that appeared icy and struck the black dragon on its side, freezing its right arm, leg, and wing, ice style, nitrogen missile. It said. Although that wasn't her original plan, the frozen appendages managed to break free from the ice. Riruhou. Naruto fired her railgun at Nultherion's heart, then watched as the dragon felt pain as the attack struck directly. A direct shot to the heart will kill it, but lightning strikes won't harm its armor. Naruto reflected on her lesson. An engine is similar to the heart. The heart functions similarly to an engine. If you give it an electrical surge, it will shut off. I will have to shoot it with Riruhou once more. She made plans while dodging Nultherion's lava cannon, which she barely avoided because it kept turning in Naruto's direction and firing simultaneously. She then gathered her Riruhou in her hands, but Nultherion prevented her from doing so. He sent a wave of spikes toward Naruto, who stopped collecting lightning and erected an iron wall in front of her. With a slam of its claws against the ground, her defense only lasted a short time before an earth spike pierced the iron wall and impaled Naruto, who then glowed out of existence, demonstrating the Excellion reverse step technique she had learned. What on earth? It broke through that iron with ease when Naruto realized that Nultherion's simple earth attacks could easily defeat her iron techniques. He thought in dismay. According to Tia, he is the Earth Warder and is in control of the planet. I suppose its earth attacks will be too strong for my iron. Its lava cannon attack is making the place dangerous for her, Naruto thought as she escaped his attack. Once more she performed some hand seals while keeping that idea in mind. Naruto willed a little rain to help cool the lava surrounding her, using the phrase, water style, monsoon. It will help a little. Just before Nultherion swiped her and sent her skipping across the field, Naruto pondered. She only managed to land on her feet after flipping herself in midair and skidding across the floor. She had a few cuts and bruises on her body, and her clothes were filthy, ripped, and burned. But he didn't pierce my skin. As she got to her feet and realized she had a broken rib, Naruto suppressed a scream. All right. Stay as far away from close attacks as you can. As she focused healing chakra on her broken rib and managed to avoid being swiped again, Naruto pondered. She observed a few aspects of battling a dragon to the death to start. You must pierce their thin skins too. You might be at a disadvantage because they come in a variety of sizes and types. 3. They're lethal at close range and at a distance. In fact, they could cover every area. Finally, they're a bitch to murder. As she continued to feed a chakra, Naruto was completely soaked by the rain. One thing she's noticed in her life is that she seems to have an endless supply of chakra, so she doesn't have to worry about it. She focused her lightning chakra in her fist and compressed it as she gripped it after her rib had healed and she had escaped another swipe that might have broken another rib or two. Naruto ran towards it, challenging it, and Nultherion leapt towards her. Naruto slid across the muddy ground and feigned backwards as the black dragon lunged at her, trying to swallow her or tear her to pieces with its teeth. She then struck the dragon under the jaw, down its throat, and directly at the chest. Naruto yelled, "Rirunamekuji," as she unleashed her compressed rail gun attack at close range, striking Nultherion's heart with a loud bang that the onlookers could hear. The dragon was tripped by the ensuing attack and fell on Naruto, but she managed to slide beneath it and narrowly avoided having her head crushed. Her coat was no longer on her, and her pants were torn to her thighs, and her shirt had some rips in it, making her clothes even more ragged. While her clothing repair seals were working to fix her clothes, they were unable to fix what was gone, leaving her with only a tank white shirt and shorts. Naruto stood up, rested against Nultherion's tail, and sighed with relief that she had passed her test. She relaxed knowing she passed her test, not caring about her attire. It wasn't meant to be, though, as she was dragged a few meters after being struck by the tail she was leaning against. After a moment or two, she sat up and turned to face the ostensibly dead dragon. As it picked itself up, Naruto let out a loud whine, unsure of how to kill it since her only option was to use her Reiru techniques. However, she decided not to use her Ryuken because it could pierce anything and she would have to reach inside the dragon, which would have burned her arm, but this is the mind, so she will put up with it. When Naruto unconsciously healed her wounds, she told herself, it's worth a shot. Although Naruto was uneasy, she used her dragon eyes when the black dragon turned to face her with intense hatred in its eyes. I ought to have taken this action right away. As she dodged the dragon's blows with greater ease, Naruto reflected. As Naruto employed shadow clones to divert the dragon's attention and they began releasing more chakra-consuming techniques that would kill a Jonin from chakra exhaustion, the battle became increasingly deadly. She employed the following methods on this dragon: Water Style, Water Pressure Drill, Rasengan, Water Trident, Leviathan's Wrath, Leviathan's Tsunami, Triple Piercing Dragon Missile, and Five-Headed Dragon Crush. Inferno Style, Dragon Missile, Grand Fireball, Eruption, Flame Tongue, and Suffering Tornado. Iron Spear, Iron Dragon Shot, Iron Dragon Missile, Iron Spikes, and Iron Spike Wave are examples of Earth Style. Lightning Style, Discharge Cannon, Electric Dragon, Riruhou, and Riranamekuji. Ice Style, Ice Spikes, Impaling Forest, and Nitrogen Missile. Electric Beams. In the Storm Style, she sighed, knowing that she would have to use her last option because none of the methods she tried caused any damage. The dragon jerked its head back, revealing its chest, which gave her the opening she required, after a shadow clone unleashed a Riranamekuji directed at its face with a sudden acceleration and a grip on her white lightning-wielding hand. Naruto yelled, "Ryuken," as she got to its chest and stabbed its heart with her rail blade. She felt something shatter as her attack made contact, giving the impression that she had broken through a window. When she felt her hand getting burned, she stabbed it into its chest and quickly withdrew it. She then jumped away and saw her useful work as her hand started to get covered in healing chakra. She observed tiny lava leaks coming out of the hole she had sunk through, resembling a human wound that was bleeding. When her last option failed, Naruto let out a loud whine. As the remaining shadow clones occupied the black dragon, Naruto said, "Might as well give this a try." This caught the attention of the onlookers. As Volva watched Naruto construct a Rasengan and start incorporating lightning chakra into it, she asked, "What is she doing now?" Jiraiya remarked in admiration of his pupil, "Since her Ryuken didn't work, she is attempting the impossible." He knew that if he had engaged in combat with that dragon, he would have perished when Naruto was struck by it. As Naruto started to hold an unsteady lightning Rasengan, Orta remarked, "She hasn't figured out what is wrong with that technique yet, so why is she using it now?" Everyone's attention was drawn to Leviathan's comment, "You seem calm, Tia." The dragon in question was merely observing the battle with interest. With her hand parallel to the ground, Naruto said, "You ever heard of people figuring things out when the pressure is high?" Tia smiled as she noticed something, and Naruto raised her eyebrow. Everyone nodded as Naruto held her hand vertical to the ground, holding the lightning Rasengan on the edge as the sphere started to stabilize itself. "You know that humans only use 10% of their brain," Tia said. Naruto now held her new Rasengan in the same manner as she holds her Riruhou, with her left hand palming the back of her right hand and her right hand vertically holding the lightning sphere. "Well, we dragons can use 11% of our brain even if it is a small percentage," she said, "but it makes a huge difference." Naruto yelled, "Lightning Style, Rasengan," and launched her new Rasengan at the dragon, striking it squarely in the heart and at the open chest. While everyone anticipated that the dragon would be covered in lightning, they did not anticipate that it would be torn to pieces. As it spun, the lightning sphere tore through the dragon, tearing it to pieces and sending it flying in all directions. Similar to her Riruhou, Naruto's new technique has a spin that, when it strikes its target, produces a drill effect. This isn't a pretty sight, as Nultherion's remains are scattered everywhere. Naruto exclaimed, finally, as she fell to the ground, exhausted from battling the cursed dragon. The ground began to tremble, and Naruto let out a loud cry, believing the dragon was still alive even though she knew it was dead. As Naruto looked around and saw a figure that resembled a ghostly rock, the earth stopped trembling. As she looked higher, she saw more of the ghostly figure and the underside of a serpentine dragon, and she could see that something was made of the ground. Where its arms started, it was yellow with white hair. Higher up, she could see the yellow dragon's head and spike-like fins running along its spine. There were jaws around its crown, around its green eyes, and long white hairs at the snot of its nose instead of horns. Compared to Leviathan, the dragon is enormous. In fact, it nearly covered the sky. The dragon above Naruto told her, "It took you 6 years to finish the 5 elemental tests." It sounded calm and fierce at the same time, which she found difficult to understand. The dragon burst out laughing when he said, "6 years? It took hundreds of years for your predecessors to finish the 5 tests." Naruto looked perplexed and recalled that it was a boss dragon who saw potential in her to will all elements. "You truly are the child I was hoping for you to become. I see you have realized that I Huanglong was the one who asked for you to have the dragon blood." As it started to shrink into its human form, an elderly man with white hair, the dragon spoke. He was carrying a golden staff and was wearing sandals, a tan pair of pants, and an old-looking blue eye. He appeared happy, with his eyes closed, beard, and long white eyebrows. Huanglong said, "You are the child I was hoping you would become." He sounded content rather than elderly. The old man simply stood and then sat next to her while Naruto remained in her lying position. She wanted to know why she was chosen, so she asked, "Why me?" While the elderly man merely laughed, Naruto nodded and asked, "What do you mean why? Why were you picked from the millions of other children in the world?" Huanglong remarked, "You are a funny kid girl. You weren't picked because you had a malevolent demon in you." Naruto simply exhaled, aware that she wasn't chosen because she possessed the Kyuubi. "No, the endless chakra was just a bonus for you. The reason you were picked is because I saw something in you. I saw something that I haven't seen in thousands of years when I was just a hatchling, and that is a very long time. Mind you, back then everything was peaceful, and I saw the same heart in you that I saw back then that brought happiness to the world. You were picked because I saw that you can bring this world of war to peace. It may not happen next month or the next year or 100 of years, but it will happen." As the ground around her started to sprout grass with various flower types and trees started to grow quickly, Naruto nodded and simply chose to unwind. As she took in the scenery, Naruto questioned, "What happens now?" As Naruto started to nod off, Huanglong remarked, "Nothing now. The Dragon King has already seen you worthy enough to have dragon blood, and you just need to master the sub-elements before going to the high-level elements. I told you she can do it." A figure behind Huanglong, who emerged behind the Earth Dragon, said, "She did it in 6 years. Since she was born as a dragon, that doesn't mean she can bring the world to peace." Huang turned to see a tall, blonde man dressed in black, with spiky hair. As soon as he heard him, he recognized him. Looking across the grassy field where Naruto slept, Huang declared, "She will succeed, I guarantee it." The man in black looked down at the girl and remarked, "Just because she passed the tests quickly doesn't mean she will bring the world to peace. What do you and Tiamat see in her?" The elderly man sighed and remarked, "It is so long ago that we saw something that brought us hope." Before he vanished, the man remarked, "Be that as it may, but remember, she can either be the world's savior or the world's destroyer." Huang recognized the voice and simply laughed when he heard, "Bahamut giving you a hard time." Recalling the tantrum he incited upon learning of this Haku, Huang remarked, "He is always the serious one when it comes to the dragon blood. He was throwing a fit when a second appeared, but since it was Hiranmaru he had to let it pass." The Earth Dragon nodded when Tia, formerly known as Tiamat, stated, "Since she passed she can choose who she sees fit to have the blood in their veins, right?" Huang grinned and remarked, "Of course she can choose who she wants. She's going to need more than that boy to satisfy her." Tia gave him a beating that he will never forget for the rest of his life. After 2 months since Naruto completed her 5-element training, the three have been traveling back to Konoha. Naruto's growth has increased as a result of finishing her 5 elements. She appeared to be a true kunoichi and is 1 foot shorter than Jiraiya. Her bangs hang down from her face, and her waist-length hair is tied in a braid. Her eyes are as sharp as ever, and she has a slim body that is neither too big nor too small. She looked stunning overall, but if you got on her bad side, she could be deadly. Naruto stopped referring to her as Little Kuga because she had also experienced a growth spurt. Now, she calls her Narga because the little cat has grown into a mountain lion, which is 2 meters long from nose to tail and 2 feet tall from shoulder. Because she applied growth seals, the wonders of seals, to her original attire, Naruto was able to keep it. She trained in her sub-elements on the way to Konoha, and since Earth is a significant tribute to her training, it has included wood, crystal, sand, and lava. She still has her entire life to learn them, though she was only taught the fundamentals of wood and lava. And here they are, before the gates of Konoha. Actually, Jiraiya was the only person standing in front of the building. He looked where Naruto should be and discovered that she had taken off, but he never received a response to his question. So Naruto, how does it feel to be home? It seems, Jiraiya heard Naruto appear next to him, demonstrating her favorite method of frightening people away. Naruto nodded her head in agreement as it emerged from Naruto's shadow. Nice. The little dragon's ability to conceal itself within Naruto's shadow baffled the Gamma Sennin. You sure that plan of yours is going to work? Jiraiya asked the girl, unsure if her plan would succeed. Before vanishing into the wind, Naruto uttered the words, "Sure it will. I don't want to be a slave to the council, besides they won't be able to handle me anyway." As he held on to the old man's office, Jiraiya simply shrugged, knowing that she would be close by. Alongside the Hokage as he carried on with his paperwork, the elderly man felt aging, and when he became uncomfortable, he felt even older. In fact, he is experiencing the same uneasiness that others in the village have reported. You think he noticed, Sensei? The old man drew a kunai and prepared to fight right away. The elderly man, who was on his guard, said, "Show yourself." Sheesh, he is as cranky as ever. He recognized the voice as that of one of his students, and sure enough, he shimmered into existence with an unidentified person standing next to him who was a foot shorter than him. "Hey old man, I'm back and I brought someone with me." The elderly man gave the woman before him a close examination. Unlike his academy fangirls, she is everything he could possibly want in a kunoichi. He made an effort to identify the woman, but he knew he should be able to identify her. He then recalled that Jiraiya had only one friend, and that was the daughter of his successor. "Naruto?" he inquired, and the woman smiled back. Naruto looked at the elderly man and said, "In the flesh." She joked, "Man, time sure wasn't kind to you." The old man simply laughed. He turned to his seat and sat down, grinning, saying, "That's what happens when you take the Hokage seat and start the paperwork. So how did your training go?" After removing 6 slabs of paper, Naruto activated them by pressing them against the ceiling, floor, and walls. Naruto said, "Privacy seals?" The elderly man nodded, acknowledging that this was a private matter. As he started to explain to the elderly man what he had been teaching the girl and the events that transpired, Jiraiya remarked, "A success? Naruto's ability to use all 5 elements and their sub-elements, including dragons, as well as her training, last test, and growth spurt, astounded the elderly man. And here we are." The elderly man felt even older and knew that the council would be thrilled about this and would want her too, either as weapons or as breeding stock. The old man sighed and Naruto reassured him with a smile, saying, "The council will have a field day with this." As she explained her plan to the elderly man, Naruto said, "Don't worry about them. Let me worry about them. I already figured it out." She intended to establish her small clan home on an abandoned plot of land that no one, that is, no one, would ever enter. Assume that her clan is small but strong and extremely secretive, only revealing themselves when the time was appropriate. Inform the council that she is the last person from her clan and that the other members were killed in the Kyuubi attack. She explained to him that she would not be able to conceive for 100 years due to her advanced age. She went on to describe how her ability would frighten the weak-minded, such as civilians, into avoiding her company, which is true. Finally, since she didn't want to attend the academy, she needs to demonstrate her abilities. The elderly man attempted to persuade Naruto to enroll in the academy, but she appeared too old and mature to do so, and it would only make her weaker because she was aware that she was unaffected by high-level jutsu, devastating taijutsu, seal master, genjutsu, chakra control, and element manipulation. Yes, her time at the academy would be a waste. Naruto simply nodded as the elderly man asked, "So you would like an evaluation exam to see what rank you are?" "Not just the written test but the whole evaluation, from the written exam to how strong I really am, and I will let you know I have a gravity seal along with a wind resistance seal on me right now," Naruto said while the Hokage was simply nodding. The Hokage noticed her smile and asked, "You're trying to hit clan head and village tactician, are you?" As the Hokage started going through the files in the cabinets, Naruto remarked, "Yes, I already got the plans formed to the layouts to the security. Just get me some land that no one uses and I'll start right away." She simply shook her head no when the old man asked, "Do you need construction workers?" As she accepted the piece of paper that would become her territory, Naruto informed the man, "I already got some dragons that could build the home." She examined it to make sure it was adequate, and it was. "This is good enough. Can you all set this all up in a week?" Naruto nodded and walked away from the elderly Hokage, who had a suspicious expression on his face. "Yeah, the things you asked for will be difficult, but I will accomplish it within your time range." As the elderly man nodded, Jiraiya explained, "It's called the wind veil. The technique is just like my peaking technique and people would just think that it is just the wind." The elderly man inquired, How strong is she, Jiraiya? In an attempt to gauge her true strength. I'll be blunt with you, old man. She can beat the living daylights out of me if I get her on her bad side. When we have an all-out fight, we are evenly matched. In a few more years I won't be able to fight her evenly. Heck, she can level the village with the techniques she knows of. Jiraiya was telling the Hokage how powerful she was. If her plan works, the village will be in good hands, the old man knew. Alongside Naruto, it looks like the location she requested is correct. It's ideal that there are only trees and land, no buildings. After sensing the area and finding nothing within a 5-mile radius, only the village 3 miles away, and realizing that the area is near the Forest of Death, a suitable location for Naga to go hunting, Naruto declared, "This will do." The aforementioned cougar-like dragon was scanning the surroundings as though in search of food. Naruto performed hand seals and bit her thumb when she realized no one was around. Naruto yelled, summoning jutsu, as smoke billowed around the scene. After the smoke cleared, Naruto found herself surrounded by numerous small dragons of various sizes, including ones that were above her head, hip, and shoulder. Their scales resembled rocks or bark, but they resembled Naga in her dragon form. The larger one, with brown bark-like skin, was the same size as her and stood as tall as Naruto when he bowled to her. The dragon turned to face the smaller dragons and asked, "Is this the place?" Naruto nodded her head as the smaller dragons saluted and fled in various directions. The dragon roared, "Alright, you maggots, get to work like we planned. You want the basic work or the full package?" Naruto said, "The full package, Mokuzai." The dragon nodded, then slammed his claw to the ground to create a massive basement for the compound's residents. As Naruto watched the smaller dragon grow a tree before chopping it down and slicing it into timber wood, Mokuzai remarked, "If the maggots don't slack off, we will finish in 4 days at most." Meanwhile, some were excavating to build a wall, while others were removing the trees and using them as wood. Inquiring as to how dragons became such skilled home builders, Naruto questioned, "So, how did you guys become home construction workers?" The dragon paused to consider it. The dragon slammed his claw to the floor, revealing the basement's grown wooden walls and ceiling, and remarked, "We just got bored and took up construction as a hobby. Then it just becomes a habit for us to start making homes." Naruto had an idea just now how bored were dragons that they developed the habit of building houses. A week later, the council room, the civilian councilman yelled, "This is an outrage. There was a hidden clan within Konoha and we were not informed." And all of the other civilian council members concurred. The head of the Aburame clan stated, "They must have a logical reason to not show themselves to the village." The other clan members concurred. As the civilians were preparing to get a marriage proposal for this clan, Hiashi made the inquiry, "What is their reason that this clan didn't show themselves?" When the Hokage saw Danzo preparing his next move, he frowned inwardly and remarked, "Their bloodline is the reason they remain hidden." The clan members simply nodded when the civilians asked what that meant, and the elderly man had to frown once more because they were never up to date. Their bloodline is called the Dragon Blood. They have the abilities of a dragon. Shibi Aburame began to attract everyone's attention with the phrase, "A dragon." He nodded to the Hokage, who nodded in return, and said, "I see, they have the right to stay out of the village with those abilities." The Aburame nodded in response to the Hokage's question, "I'm guessing you've heard the stories about dragons?" The Hokage's advisor demanded, "Explain yourself, Hokage." The Hokage gave her a glare in return, and the council looked on in confusion, wondering how the elderly man had grown a backbone. The Hokage swore at the elderly woman who was constantly demanding, saying, "If I were you, Kaharu, I'd be patient." The civilians had just realized they had lost control of the Hokage when they turned to face the advisor and said, "Before I was ordered to explain, Naruto Ryu, would you come in?" Everyone was uncomfortable when the door opened. The more seasoned clan members simply dismissed it, but the Aburame remained seated while his bugs wanted to get out of here, and the Inuzuka felt like submitting to this individual. On the other hand, the civilian members wanted to avoid this individual because they were afraid. As she delighted in frightening the council members, Naruto remarked, "You called." As he delighted in watching the terrified civilians, the Hokage asked, "Would you like to explain the council of your clan's bloodline?" As she raised her hands and willed a ball of wind to circle around her along with fire, water, earth, and lightning, Naruto remarked, "Sure thing, my clan is very secretive that they don't want power-hungry people having this kind of power. My clan has the ability to manipulate all 5 elements along with the sub-elements if I have the training." Danzo wanted to have this power in his hands, so he said, "We should have you on the CRA. In affect, I have people already picked out." However, Naruto's smile made him uncomfortable. As she wished the elements away, Naruto remarked, "That won't be likely." My clan had this problem of getting pregnant because we stop aging until we die. You see, I am still a child among dragons, and that means I won't get pregnant until I turn 100 years old. If I just get married, my spouse will just wither away and die until I am ready. This is the reason why my clan is so few on numbers, because they were not ready to get pregnant, and the dragons have to see if the child is worthy enough to have this bloodline. Due to this bloodline flaw, many of Danzo's and the civilians' plans were blown out of the window. After his bugs had calmed down and gotten used to her presence, Shibi asked, "So these dragons, you say, choose whether the child is good enough for the bloodline?" "No, they make sure that the child isn't born in this world because of arranged marriage. Dragons despises forced marriages and prefer marriages that results from bonding. They make sure that the child is pure heart and not power hungry, or that the parent is forced in hand of the birth." Naruto was addressing the council members, not to mention that my bloodline eliminates other bloodlines that is trying to be mixed. All of the council's plans to hook her up with the final Uchiha are ruined. To get the council's attention, the Hokage said, "Could you explain your ability? That is why you don't show yourself in the village." They believed that their failure to show up was due to a birth defect. The room suddenly felt heavy, causing some civilians to faint. Naruto responded, "Sure." The Nara head felt completely awake for once. Sume Inuzuka almost gave in to her again but pinched herself to keep herself from doing so, and Shibi Aburame was motionless as his bugs demanded that he leave right away. My clan has this ability that makes my presence feared. As the majority of the civilians awoke but remained silent out of concern that they would offend the woman in front of them, Homura remarked, "She should have an evaluation test." The Hokage pointed to the sheet in front of everyone that nobody ever reads and said, "She has already taken the evaluation test." The civilian council members said, not believing the test results, "This is not possible." Following the test results, the head of Nara remarked, I can retire early." With a nod from the Nara head, the Akamichi head remarked, "She is as smart as you, Shikaku." She was ranked as a village tactician after spending 5 hours correctly answering all of the test's questions. As the clan members realized the Hokage was luring the civilian side, they also waited. "The test shows that she is ranked elite Jonin or higher, but I can't rank her with the test itself." A member of the civilian council stated, "Then we should hold a fight to see her skills." Sinker, line, hook. As Naruto's plan came together, the Hokage pondered. The stadium was full when news broke that a new clan had arrived and was showcasing its skills. Naruto stood, awaiting the appearance of her opponents. Jiraiya was beside the Hokage as he sat upright with the council. The villagers assumed she was just a fangirl when they first saw her, but the shinobi could tell by the way she carried herself that she was lethal. In addition, she is so stunning that any man would want to hook up with her. Using the voice projection jutsu, the Hokage yelled, "Attention," he said, to a roar of applause. "I would like to present you the last Ryu clan member, Naruto Ryu. Today we are here to see how strong her clan's strength is." Naruto waited until she saw a genin approach her and let out a sigh. "I'm not being taken seriously by them." Naruto considered ending this deadly situation. Jiraiya attracted the council's attention by saying, "He is so dead, she is deadly in close range and doesn't like to be taken lightly." Naruto appeared in front of the genin at the beginning of the match and simply punched him to the ground, ending the battle. As Naruto simply returned to her position and waited for her next victim, the stadium was silent. As the genin was performed, Jiraiya remarked, "See, if she isn't taken seriously she will most likely send them to the hospital." The council merely nodded. Chunin entered while Naruto was once more waiting for a fighter, and just like in the last battle, she punched him to the ground. When her sensei merely shook his head, Naruto yelled, "Damn it, Jiraiya, get down here." Jiraiya called back, saying, "There is no way I am going to fight you. I still have that pain in my shoulder from last time." He didn't want to fight the girl who killed him. As the Inu Anbu member materialized in front of him, the Hokage uttered the word, "Inu." As the Hokage pointed to Naruto, the silver-haired Anbu said, "Yes, Hokage-sama." As he shunshin in front of Naruto, who was prepared for battle, the Anbu nodded and said, "Treat this like a regular Anbu fight." Naruto simply examined him. Naruto did as before, but the Anbu was prepared and cut where Naruto was. "I guess you will do." The kunai struck him directly, but it went through. Anbu turned to see Naruto still standing there and exclaimed, "What the?" As she entered a taijutsu battle and assumed complete control, she remarked, "Not bad." Just before her fist dug into his torso and sent him flying to the wall, Naruto said, "You're not bad." However, she felt a hand on her ankle as the Anbu attempted to drag her beneath the ground, but she managed to stay above it. Not good enough. The ground trembled like an earthquake and she stomped on it. The Anbu emerged from the earth that would crush him to pieces if he remained there. While Naruto stood motionless, waiting to see what he was doing, he began performing hand seals. He said, "Fire style, Grand Fireball Jutsu," and blasted a massive fireball at Naruto, who appeared disinterested. Boring. With her palm up, Naruto willed fire in her hands and threw it at the ball, which transformed into a spear and traveled through the fireball before heading directly for the Anbu. As a slab of earth rose up from the ground to take on the firehead, the Anbu performed hand seals as the fire spear struck the wall and spread out. Naruto said, "Good move." She then moved her hand around the wall and headed in the direction of the Anbu. But not good enough. Naruto heard a buildup of electricity as the fire engulfed the Anbu and made a poof sound. The blue lightning that the Anbu is holding sounds like a lot of birds. As she held white lightning in her hands, which sounded, well, it doesn't make a sound, but she knew that it makes a loud bang when it makes contact with something. Naruto simply raised an eyebrow in response and followed suit. Naruto ran toward the Anbu and said, "Let's see whose blade is stronger." The Anbu followed suit. Reikari, Ryuruken. In their struggle for supremacy, both attacks made contact. However, Naruto's attack was defeated 2 seconds later when it resulted in an explosion. When the dust settled, Naruto was standing where they had made contact, looking as bored as ever, and he was unconscious and the ground was marked with the Anbu. If they were this weak, I should have left my gravity seal on. If nothing else, it would give me a challenge as Anbu members surrounded and removed the downed member, Naruto pondered. As though facing a genin, the village's shinobi watched as this woman effortlessly vanquished the Anbu's most formidable opponent. They reminded themselves not to annoy this woman, while the younger, soon-to-be Kunoichi viewed her as an inspiration. The village's Kunoichi saw her as the ideal Kunoichi. Returning to the council room, since the civilians didn't mention being afraid of her wrath, the council members were considering what rank she should hold while the woman in question waited. Since she demonstrated that she is as lethal as Jiraiya mentioned, the clan council members have already granted her the right to form her own clan. The civilians wanted to deny this, but the woman's presence prevented them from doing so, so Homura asked, "How about Ryu Sennin?" In agreement with Homura, Kaharu remarked, "That is suitable along with being a village tactician." Naruto accepted the title and didn't mind being a tactician, saying, "Dragon Sage, sure, why not?" According to Shibi Aburame, Sennin seems to be the right rank for her. With his friend nodding in agreement, Nara stated, "It's too troublesome for anything else, Sennin it is." The Yamanaka agreed, saying, "Why have a snake when we can have a dragon?" Hiyashi cast his vote, saying, "It seems right for her to be Sennin." Sume exclaimed, "I call for her to be a Ryu Sennin, already accustomed to her presence." The Hokage asked the civilians, "Does the civilian council disagree with this?" As Naruto surreptitiously directed her aura at them to silence them, the Warhawk simply shook his head, knowing that anything he said would be detrimental to him. "You Danzo?" The Hokage asked with an inward smirk. Nara simply waved his hand and said, "Then it is decided that Naruto Ryu will be a tactician along with Shikaku Nara." When a plan comes together, Naruto smirks to herself because she has been reading Konoha laws while building her house. Because she is a Sennin, she is free to leave the village, but she must report to the Hokage alone. Additionally, because she is protected by her clan, the civilians have no authority over her. She only needs to watch this Danzo character now that she has a place in Konoha. She felt bad about him the moment she saw him, so she made sure to watch him closely and consider ways she could thwart any plans he might have for her. Naruto Ryu, you are Konoha's Dragon Sage, at the clan home of Naruto. After receiving the rank of Ryu Sennin, she went to get some much-needed rest. She first noticed her compound's walls. She added a little something extra to the walls, which looked like any other walls any clan would use. On these walls, she created an enormous number of security seals. A strong genjutsu that would send anyone to the opposite end of the wall will be used against anyone who is not welcome. Her security dragons would attack anyone who entered the compound violently if they managed to get past that, and the best part is that no one can see over the walls. Heck, she made a seal to keep the Byakugan out. She went through the gates with chakra sensory seals that would only open for her chakra after passing the wall. The dragons appear to be interested in traditional home building, as evidenced by the two-story building in front of her. When she questioned Mokuzai about the traditional home, he replied that it was more difficult in any case. The building features 80 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom, a library, a study hall, a master study room, a waiting area, 2 living rooms, a dojo, and a master bedroom. A storage room, a bedroom with a bathroom, a laundry room, and a maintenance room are all located in the basement. After passing the house, Naruto went into the backyard, which she could use for training, but she kept going. When she arrived at a particular spot, she performed hand seals to observe the earth split open, revealing a staircase that she descended. After following the tunnel, she reached a door with numerous security seals. When she heard a lock click, Naruto triggered her dragon eyes. She then bit her thumb and smeared it on the door to hear another click, and finally, she channeled her blood-stained hand to the door to hear the final click. As Naruto entered the room, the door opened and she saw numerous holders against the wall that appeared to be intended for swords. She has been tasked by Tai to locate and gather every dragon sword that is concealed throughout the world, and she plans to store them here. However, the sword she stumbled over during the construction of her house is located in the center wall of the room. With its brown, red sheath, dark purple handle, and round guard, the sword appears to be a typical katana. But Naruto was aware that appearances can be deceiving. Tia told her that this was one of the dragon swords. Haku got his dragon blood from a sword like this. She just noticed a tiny spark of flames when she looked up at the sword. Who would have thought I would find you this soon, Ryujin Jaka? She has had the title of Ryu Senin for a year, and she is loving it. The shadow manipulator was thankful that he could sleep during the meeting, which she didn't mind, but she had to meet with the Hokage and that Nara man to discuss plans for the village. Throughout her year, she assisted in giving the Hokage back his power and offered him guidance on paperwork, specifically Shadow Clone Jutsu. The elderly man also assured her that he would support her in any situation she found herself in, no matter how serious. She has a get-out-of-trouble card from the Hokage, which is good to know. She instructed him, however, to have 2 shadow clones read the documents and then give them to another shadow clone to sign. If the shadow saw anything that required further consideration, they would then give them back to the original. Indeed, it was wise counsel that enabled him to apprehend half of the civilian council members for attempting to use writing to steal the Hokage's power, giving Naruto yet another escape card. She has 2 now. She used one to recruit Haku and his subordinates as Konoha's spies. They consented and were required to serve for 3 years before they could join the Leaf. In addition, she made a friend who became interested in Dango. Mitarashi Anko. She said something about her forest or something, and it began as a furious argument because she allowed her dragon to roam the forest of death hunting prey. However, she and Anko came to an agreement whereby she would allow Narga to enter the forest in exchange for a weekly box of dango and a monthly all-you-can-eat dango. At first, Naruto put up with the woman, wondering why she seemed so relaxed around her while everyone else was afraid of her. She later struck up a conversation with the woman and enjoyed her company. She doesn't suck up to her but expresses her opinions. After that, she befriended the snake woman. She met the next generation of genin, but she never received any marriage proposals. Her presence initially made them fearful, but eventually they grew accustomed to her. When she first met them, she was disappointed to see that the majority of the kids believed that being a ninja was just play and games, with the expectation that they would defeat a villainous man or save a princess. When they understand what a ninja actually is, they will definitely wake up. One genin, however, drew her attention. She was referred to as the academy's weapon mistress by the other students. Her eyes are brown, her hair is in 2 buns, and she is wearing green pants and a pink Chinese-style blouse. For a moment there, Naruto saw a fangirl in her. Then, when the girl saw her, she had an admiring expression on her face, but Naruto saw that it was aimed at the sword she had strapped to her back. Tenten certainly has an eye for weapons, particularly the one she was carrying. Jaka Ryujin. She discovered that these swords select their wielders and, like Heiranmaru, will bestow dragon blood on the one who wields them. In actuality, the old man wanted to know her, and her sword pulsed when it saw Tenten. Indeed, Naruto spoke with the dragon, who expressed gratitude for locating him. Like Heiranmaru, he is quite elderly and seeks a successor, which is Tenten. She initially gave the girl the sword, and it turned out that she bonded with it. She made a deal with her and gave her a regular katana, even though having to take it back broke her heart. She can give her a sword and allow her to be her apprentice if she can demonstrate to her that she can wield it correctly. She felt a spark of fire in her eyes as soon as she said those words, and she was resolved to get that sword. She was now aware of the reason Ryujin Jaka selected her to be his wielder. The girl and Naruto had a duel, and since she was proficient with a blade and possessed the traits Ryujin Jaka desired, she consented to the dragon's offer to take her on as an apprentice. Without bothering to inquire as to why she had chosen her, the Hokage once again approved of her taking in an apprentice and adopting her into her clan. When the civilian council learned of this, Naruto fought to get the 10-year-old girl into her clan with all of her might. She simply stated that she saw potential in her. When the council questioned why, Danzo demanded that Tenten be included in the root program right away, giving Naruto the chance to fire him. She inquired about the root program and learned that it was prohibited. She then questioned why he was requesting someone to be a part of it when the 4th Hokage was supposed to disband it. The clan council took notice of this under the direction of Naruto, Shikaku, and Inoichi. the Hokage has launched an investigation into Danzo or his associates. It took Naruto a week to discover a large number of sleeper agents that are actually root agents. From the head of the academy to the captains of Anbu, they held prominent positions in the village. In fact, the secretary to the Hokage was a root member. She could only see them because she was able to identify silent seals on their tongues with her dragon eyes. Naruto managed to remove the seals with ease, allowing Ibiki to handle the remaining tasks. Danzo can be charged with treason based on sufficient evidence that he is acting contrary to the previous Hokage's orders and the quantity of kidnappings and brainwashings he has ordered. When a group of Anbu members surrounded him to arrest him, Danzo fled, however, because he had his own private army with him. She has already cleared out the majority of Konoha in just 1 month. Gazing at the entrance to Root's headquarters, Naruto questioned, "This is the entrance?" Anko informed Naruto, "From what we got from the Root members, yes, this is the main entrance." Anko showed Naruto the map of the underground tunnel and said, "This is the only entrance there is, and they have an emergency exit over here." She believes that the tunnel's numerous passageways are well guarded and secured. Then there's the room where Danzo spends time strategizing. The best part is that the tunnels were far from the village. She then saw that the entrance she was looking at had a very long passageway with a tightly sealed doorway. Any ideas? While Anko performed hand seals, Naruto remarked, "I have one. We don't have to fight our way through the Root members." Summoning Jutsu. Naruto yelled as the enormous earth dragon, which she had fought with 3 months prior, appeared. It had orange bright chest and black stone-like skin. The voice is deep and rough, asking, "What is your bidding, child?" Naruto questioned the black dragon, "Nultherion, what happens when you make lava flow in tunnels?" As Naruto nodded, Nultherion explained, "Lava will flow around them until it finds an exit. If there is no exit, then the lava will burst out of the ground like a volcano." The dragon grinned at Naruto when he asked, "What happens if there is something blocking the pathways?" To give Naruto a sense of what she is requesting, the dragon said, "Then the pressure of the lava will increase against the blocked pathway until it bursts through, making the lava flow accelerate like steam escaping a container." As she took the map and showed it to Nultherion, Anko reminded Naruto, "I'd advise against that, Naruto. Our secondary mission is to get the brainwashed children out alive." Naruto pointed to a room on the map and asked the dragon, "How long will your lava reach this location?" The black dragon studied the map and did some math. Nultherion gestured toward the door leading to the children's room and said, "My lava will reach here in 10 minutes. Naruto nodded as she performed more hand seals. "If this door holds my lava for a few minutes, then the room will overflow with lava in seconds. I say 2 minutes at best before it breaks through that door." With the words, summoning Jutsu, Naruto called forth the dragon that had assisted her in constructing her house a month prior. The wooden dragon saluted like a soldier and asked, "What do you need for me to build?" Naruto showed the dragon the same map and said, "I need a tunnel to this location." Before beginning to dig a tunnel, Mokuzai saluted and said, "Normally I'd ask the maggots to make the tunnel, but this looks serious. Understood. I'll begin right away." "Shall we get going?" Naruto asked as he moved next to the dragon-made tunnel, while Anko simply grinned and dove in after the dragon. Naruto yelled, "You can start, Nultherion," as the dragon nodded and she leapt into the tunnel. With a thunderous roar, the black dragon slammed its head into the entrance and began spewing lava into the tunnel. The secondary mission went off without a hitch. Even though some children appeared lifeless, they will be able to turn their lives around with the help of therapy. Just before the lava exploded, Naruto managed to get the children out of the room. She then sealed her escape tunnel to keep the lava from pursuing her. Danzo and his root members were met at the escape path by the Hokage and the Anbu. The majority of Danzo's root force was killed by the lava that flowed through the tunnels, which made it simpler for the Hokage's forces to eliminate Danzo and his root members. A minor issue was something Naruto relied on. Danzo dispatched a small force to demolish Naruto's house and apprehend Tenten, who then moved in with her. Her earth dragons killed the root shinobi when they arrived at her house, dragging them underground or dragging them inside trees before killing them elsewhere. While Tenten was being cared for by Narga during the battle with Root, the girl was caressing the enormous disguised dragon, totally unaware of the carnage taking place outside. The girls she rescued from the Root forces expressed their admiration for her after that day and asked her to be their sensei, but they had to wait since they were still children. Naruto was able to adopt the newly named Tenten into her clan and give her the Ryu name after Danzo was killed and the civilian council lost a lot of power. The civilian council also got off her back at this point. Tenten became Ryujin Jaka's heir, just like Haku, and the two bun-haired girl was glad to have a family and be a sister to the Ryu Sennin. She had a slight change in appearance, with her eyes burning red and her brown hair taking on a hint of red since Ryujin Jaka is the fire dragon sword. Naruto started teaching her the fine arts of fire manipulation and training her to be like a dragon, which means being perceptive and thinking before acting. Along with signing the dragon summoning scroll, Tenten's first summon was a smaller, fatalis-like dragon. It had red-brown scales, spike horns along the spine, big wings on its back, a tail that resembled a dual axe that opened up like scissors, and yellow eyes on both of its heads. It was 1 story tall. The dragon gave itself the name Drake, and Tenten and the dragon clicked right away. Drake didn't mind flying around on the dragon, and she loves to take advantage of any opportunity to do so. Tenten has occasionally accompanied Naruto on missions outside the village. She was once sent to apprehend a nin that had gone missing. She used the dragon split and an earth dragon missile to capture him with the help of several earth dragons who were prepared to kill him if he attempted to flee. She was able to trap the nin against the ground. Her overuse of it resulted in 10 earth dragons that surrounded the nin with 100 smaller dragons. In mind, Naruto will train with the sub-elements for a year or two. Now that she no longer required hand seals for the 5 fundamental elements, they came naturally to her. Her Inferno is mastery due to the use of dragon breath. Boil has become high level and she created a few new techniques for it. Storm has been challenging to learn, but she has learned a few techniques. Chaos is chaotic to learn. She took a liking to wood because she can perform a jutsu to make a house when she is outside of the village. And finally, lava, which she was only able to learn how to shoot slabs of molten rocks from her mouth and discovered that using it doesn't harm her. She has yet to touch the others, and Huan Long has been teaching her meditation techniques to bring her chakras into harmony, which she finds extremely challenging. Although Tenten's initial training was limited, she was able to teach her the fundamentals of the dragon claws, and she became proficient in them. Tenten is extremely appreciative that Ryujin Jaka made her like weapons. Although she wanted the dragon to appear around her neck with the number in the front middle, she forced her to perform the tree climbing technique and applied a dragon gravity seal. Naruto consented to place the dragon seal, which resembled a dragon coiling around her with its head and tail circling the number 2. On her neck. Tenten's fire manipulation and kenjutsu training were transferred to Ryujin Jaka. She has to take her training slowly, though, because it appears that she won't be able to use Ryujin Jaka's power until she reaches puberty, which she estimated to be around the age of 12. She adopted Tenten into her clan and assumed the title of Ryu Senin a year ago. She and Tenten were escorting a client to a place called Tea Country, and the mission was actually a B rank because the client was being targeted by ninjas. Not much, but a lot to her. Naruto's upper garments underwent a slight change. She's wearing a mesh tank top over her blue coat and a black short strap t-shirt that reveals her midriff. She discovered that she likes this type of clothing, but she blames Anko for recommending it to be more ninja-like. Her hair is still braided and now reaches her ass, where it is tied with a kunai. Since the kunai can mend itself and cannot sever her skin, she doesn't mind if it rips her clothing. It doesn't cause her any pain. In any case, Tenten Ryu, her sister and apprentice, has changed somewhat and is now dressed like a samurai, complete with a dark blue hakama, a sword by her side, and a simple light blue robe with a white robe above it. Given that Tenten was dressed in that manner when she spoke to him and that his haori was completely black with white, Naruto assumed that Ryujin Jaka had influenced him to do so. In any case, Naruto made sure she understood the fundamentals of shinobi tactics and techniques. Even though she does appear to be a samurai as it happens, she was already familiar with them. Tenten walked in step with Naruto, asking, "So what are we expecting, sis?" Narga is the client's head transformed into a black panther. It makes sense to place the dragon in front of Narga because she has an excellent sense of smell. The dragon is 2.5 meters long and 4 feet high. Naruto enjoyed the company of the curious 11-year-old and told her, "Just a 5-day walk, civilian pace, and some bandits that you can handle. There is a possibility that there are some shinobi after the client. Having someone to take care of her and treat her like a little sister is nice." Tenten nodded and glanced at her wristband, which contained Naruto's throwing knives that she had given her. "I will be taking care of them while you handle guarding the client." Tenten asked naively, "So, what is this I hear about an ice dragon boy?" As Naruto's face flushed and she stammered out a response knowing she was only interested, Naruto sighed with relief. "From what Ryujin Jaka has told me is that he has become Heirinmaru's heir. By any chance do you know him?" Naruto then started to explain to Tenten how she first met Haku and the altercation she had with him, saying, "Yeah, I met him a year ago." Tenten exclaimed in amazement that someone could match the Ryu Senin while utterly omitting Naruto's tick mark. "Wow, he is stronger than you then." Naruto told Tenten that she was just as strong as Jiraiya because she had learned all of his skills except for toad techniques. "He only defeated me because I didn't have much fighting experience." Tenten walked down the path with a contemplative expression on his face. "As of now I have no idea how strong he has become." "Why aren't we using dragons to fly to Tea Country?" Naruto wanted to take responsibility, but she restrained herself and started by accusing Tenten of being lazy and wanting to use Shinobi for labor-intensive tasks. Tenten concurred with Naruto's statement that she didn't want a fat client riding her dragon. Drake doesn't want to be used as cheap labor, she was certain. After 5 days, the civilian pace of walking has been monotonous indeed. Tenten dealt with a few bandit attacks because she was bored more than anything else, but Naruto eliminated a few because Tenten was hit by some of them. Tenten is currently on a thin string, and Naruto's patience was being tried by the numerous breaks the client requested. However, with Ryujin Jaka's knowledge, that string became stronger, saving the client from a fiery grave. For the 100th time today, Naruto had to sigh when Tenten asked, "Are we there yet?" She was tired of walking to the destination and suggested that it would be quiet enough for Naruto to hear. "We could just knock the client out and carry him back to Tea Country." A group of rain shinobi actually leapt out of the trees and threw an umbrella in the air before it blasted thousands of senbon needles. As tempting as that appears to be, but I'll pass because we got company. Tenten immediately acted, inhaling deeply and blasting a stream of flames at the umbrella, causing the senbon needles to melt completely and the umbrella to burn. Both of the girls turned to face the voice, and Naruto recognized the man right away. It seems that the shinobi that Konoha has sent are stronger than they appear to be. As she placed her hand on her sword Excellion, Naruto turned to face the man with the green hair and white and blue jumpsuit. Aoi Rokusho, former shinobi of Konoha turned traitor and stole the Raijin that the Nidaime wielded. Before removing the handle that Naruto recognized as the dragon sword Raijin, Aoi smiled and said, "It seems I made a reputation. However, there was a catch. There is no blade on it according to Tia. The Raijin uses lightning to create a blade in the absence of a blade, and the handle was modified to preserve the sword-like appearance. Since the missing component was present, anyone can use Raijin because he has lost his conscience and is more like a sleeping creature. With this blade, I will become the strongest shinobi in the world," exclaimed Aoi, who was obviously intoxicated by his own strength. Naruto just sighed and removed her sword-wielding hand as she watched the hysterical man laugh with a blank expression. As she made her way to the trees she assumed to be Aoi's backup, Naruto said, "Tenten, you mind taking care of him?" Thinking she wouldn't be able to defeat the Raijin, Tenten yelled to her sensei, "But he has the Nidaime's sword." As the girl performed hand seals to break her gravity seal, Naruto told Tenten, "That sword doesn't make him stronger, Tenten, but the way she wields it does, and he doesn't know how to wield it. Just go all out and you will be fine, good girl." Using Tenten, she felt lighter and more relieved after releasing her gravity seal because she had shed some extra weight that was hers. The now Black Panther nodded when Tenten said, "Narga, take care of the client." Aoi exclaimed, "Like a girl like you will defeat me while I have Raijin in my hands?" Tenten could plainly see that he was going crazy. Tenten gripped her sword and heard Ryujin Jaka's calm yet strong voice say, "Fear not, child, that man is beyond you now. He may hold my sleeping old friend, but he is weak now. He's holding the Raijin." "What do you mean?" Tenten spoke to Jaka as Aoi attempted to sever her, but she saw that there were numerous gaps in the man's body that she could take advantage of. Tenten was given instructions by Ryujin Jaka, who said, "You see, he is completely relying on the sword. You may have my powers, but you are not ready to wield it yet. There is one move you can use to defeat him." Alongside Naruto, she returned to Tenten to check on her after finishing the rain shinobi that were concealed in the forest. Naruto heard her say, "Ryujin Jaka," as she left Tenten fighting Aoi. Concerned that Tenten might injure herself, Naruto exclaimed, "What, she's not ready to wield that power yet," as she hurried back. Tenten was a little distance away from Aoi when she arrived, with her sword in her sheath and in a ready stance. Tenten exclaimed, "Nadajiri," before launching a downward cut attack and holding her position for a brief moment before drawing her sword. From head to jewels, Aoi split in two when Tenten put her sword away. Naruto was in complete awe of Tenten's skillful cut as he stood there. "When did you learn that technique?" A startled shout jarred Tenten out of her reverie, causing her to squeak. "Ryujin taught me it just now." Tenten nodded when Naruto asked, "Ryujin, he taught you that technique just now?" Before she approached Aoi's body, pocketed the Raijin, took both halves of her head, and sealed it, Naruto remarked, "Man, he sure is right about you." When Tenten spat out flames, they woke up the client who had passed out, and Tenten asked, "What do you mean he is right about me?" as they proceeded to Tea Country. Naruto told Tenten, who was looking perplexed and didn't understand how swordsmanship had anything to do with anything, "Ryujin Jaka saw something in you and I am not sure what, but I am sure that one of the reasons why he chose you is because of your swordsmanship." When she told her that, she saw stars in Tenten's eyes and understood them. She simply grinned before ruffling her hair. That technique just now, the Natajiri, it took me 2 weeks to master that technique and it just took you a few simple instructions on how to do it. I guess the Ryu clan will have a weapon mistress soon. A day later Naruto called Orta and took off for Konoha. After the two completed the mission, the dragon flew so high and so quickly that Tenten found the ride enjoyable. Tenten had just left for home, probably heading for the hot spring, when Naruto said, "Go enjoy the day while I go report to the Hokage." When Tenten is too exhausted to travel to the opposite side of the village, Naruto had to call forth a dragon to create a hot spring inside the house. It turned out that Tenten now prefers hot spots, such as the hot springs, and she frequently visits them during her breaks. As Naruto entered the mission debriefing room, where the Hokage assigns basic missions like choirs and escorts, the Hokage asked, "Mission success?" As she presented the scroll containing the head of the Hokage of Aoi, Naruto declared, "The client is safely back home and we succeeded in killing a traitor." Naruto shook her head no, and the Hokage said, "I take it you were the one who killed this one." The elderly man lifted an eyebrow and removed the head from the scroll, saying, "No, Tenten got this one and she kind of made it messy. It is undoubtedly an uncommon sight to see an Aoi head that has been split in half by blood." As the elderly man resealed it, Naruto nodded and asked, "A new sword technique? The reward will be sent to her in a week. I assume he had the Raijin with him?" As she removed the Raijin and gave the blade to Sarutobi, Naruto remarked, "Yes, but I noticed that the Raijin is incomplete. Do you know why?" Sarutobi handed a D-rank scroll to a genin team and returned the Raijin to Naruto, saying, "I'm afraid not. Sensei only said that he found the Raijin in Kumo during the Great Shinobi War. I'm not sure where he found it, but he used it against Kumo when we were fighting them." After giving it some thought, Naruto informed the Hokage, "I need to find the blade for this sword to complete it." Recalling how Tenten was selected to wield a formidable sword, Sarutobi inquired, "Is Raijin one of your dragon swords you were talking about?" The Chunin who grabbed the sword had their hands burned off for attempting to remove it and give it to the final Uchiha. Despite the civilian council's best efforts, Naruto had to inform the council that Tenten now possesses the sword's power, and that it is merely a medium in order to silence the civilian council and ensure that no one would attempt to steal Tenten or any of her swords that she retrieved. She had to release them and direct her presence there. She now owns the Raijin, and the civilian council is powerless to harm her. Naruto nodded and left for home for the day. "We are on good terms with Lightning Country, so I could get you at least a month to travel, but it may take some time." She encountered Anko waiting for her while eating some dango. Anko chewed a dango and asked, "How was your week?" Naruto walked next to the snake woman and said, "Boring. Tenten and I had to escort a client for 5 days. You?" Anko casually remarked, "Nothing new, just the usual torturing and making the prisoners scream," as if it were a topic covered in everyday conversation. "Where is that brat anyways?" When an Anbu was told to notify Anko of additional inmates to be questioned, they quickly parted ways, saying, "Tenten, she's probably at home enjoying the hot spring." When Naruto and Shunshin left, Anko told them, "You still owe me that box of dango tomorrow." At her friend's peculiarities for enjoying dango so much, the dragon sage shook her head. After 2 days since Tenten is her apprentice, the Hokage granted Naruto permission to enter Lightning Country for a month with her. However, she had to leave Naruto behind and allow Anko to take care of her. Both prey on the idea that they won't murder one another. Since Tenten is still learning how to use wind chakra, Naruto had to call forth her own wind dragon so she could enjoy flying once more. As Tenten's dragon sped past them, Naruto remarked, "They sure are enjoying themselves." As the aforementioned dragon sped past them once more, Orta remarked, "Oikaze likes to fly." Given that her younger sister was riding a dragon with supersonic capabilities, Naruto asked, "Is it safe for Tenten to fly on her?" As they both saw that Oikaze had traveled supersonic toward Lightning Country, Orta reassured Naruto, "Yes, we wind dragons have a wind barrier for our riders to be safe. The wind barrier will help the rider to breathe normally, withstand the speed of supersonic, and take on the cold temperatures up high." Naruto braced herself and said, "There they go." Just before reaching supersonic speed and catching up to Tenten, Orta said, "Hang on tight." After 2 weeks while looking for Raijin's blade, Naruto never once sensed a pulse coming from the handle. She learned how to use the location they were staying from the Shodem's forbidden scroll. 4-pillar house jutsu is the wood style. Instead of sleeping in a cheap tent, Tenten was extremely grateful that Naruto could call forth a house. Despite searching all over Lightning Country, neither was able to locate the missing piece. Tenten looked up at the numerous mountains with lakes at their bases and asked, "What is this place?" As she gazed at the water-filled valley with mountains as the sole landmass, Naruto remarked. I believe it is called the Valley of Clouds and Lightning. Naruto went to the water's edge and performed hand seals, saying, come on, let's go. Summoning jutsu. Naruto had to wave away from striking her and Tenten after hearing a big splash. A 2-story tall water dragon was visible in the water after the smoke had cleared. It has a long neck with a long snout as a mouth and a long fin running from its spine to its long tail. It also has a huge stomach with 4 large fins that it attaches to swim. Summoned? The water dragon asked, sounding feminine and speaking in a soft, melodic voice as it peered around and noticed her summoner. The water dragon, being cautious not to make any waves, said, ah, a summoner. What is it you ask of me? My name is Umi. She patted the girl's shoulder and said, my student here doesn't know how to walk on water yet. As Naruto and Tenten climbed on and stood on the dragon's back, the dragon said, I see, climb aboard. Is there anywhere you would like to go? Naruto addressed the water dragon, saying, no, just swim around and relax. The water dragon thanked her and started swimming around the water, humming, thank you. The water dragon slept with its head up high and simply floated around after a few hours. As she awoke from her slumber, Naruto remarked, I suppose we could begin with your training. As Naruto gestured to the water, Tenten inquired, training? And then recalled her sister's statement that she was still learning how to walk on water. That's right, Naruto remarked as she witnessed Tenten grasping the lesson, and she started walking on water to demonstrate it to her. The exercise is just like the tree walking technique, but you will have to put a constant stream of chakra at the bottom of your feet because the water is always changing. Tenten took her first step, focused her chakra on her feet, and nodded. She fell through right away, just like everyone else's first time. This will take a while. The following day Tenten learned to barely stand on the water during the night. The water dragon gladly agreed when Naruto asked if it would be okay if she stayed the night so they could sleep. Tenten was wearing a white 2-piece swimsuit today, and her clothes were hanging off Umi's spine fins to dry. Tenten walked on top of the water and exclaimed, I finally did, with delight. With just her black underwear, black short strap shirt, and sword in hand, Naruto joined Tenten on the water after removing her coat, pants, mesh shirt, and sandals. Good, we can start on the harder stuff. Tenten knew what Naruto wanted to teach her, so she returned to Umi to get her sword as she waited for Tenten to initiate contact. Naruto remarked, come at me like your life depends on it. Tenten attempted to hit Naruto with the Natajiri, but she sensed a move and sidestepped it, causing the water to split open and reveal her wound. Tenten ducked down, sidestepped, and leapt over the Z attack as Naruto performed the quick draw on him more slowly. A samurai would be envious of the sword slices and cuts that Tenten and Naruto exchanged. Tenten blocked the attack that caused her to stagger back, and Naruto watched as she misplaced chakra on her feet, falling into the water. Naruto grabbed her and dragged her away. She asked Tenten as she started to catch her breath, you see what I am doing? As Naruto inhaled, Tenten addressed her, saying, you want me to concentrate on the fight rather than on my feet. That's right, now let's start again, after a week. After teaching Tenten how to fight on water, Naruto was able to teach her to walk on water instinctively. It was just in time for her to sense the Raigen's reaction, and her month in Lightning Country is almost over. To guide the water dragon to the area where Raigen is pulsing more frequently, Naruto is perched atop Umi's head. As the water dragon leapt onto the ground alongside Tenten, Naruto remarked to her, this is as far you can take us. The water dragon poofed out of existence, saying, I had a great time with you, mistress. Please summon me again if you like a peaceful swim. After a while of walking, they both discovered a staircase leading to the mountains. Tenten said, this doesn't seem right. Naruto nodded as they started to ascend the stairs. A flat layout in a circle with an additional set of stairs was visible to them when they reached the summit. Now I have a bad feeling about this. As Naruto approached the stairs and heard a conversation, she said, let's just keep going, what the? Immediately avoiding a punch to the face, Naruto grabbed Tenten and leapt back to the layout, saying, who is entering my training ground? Be prepared to be pounded to the ground. Little babe is fast, but you won't last. The two girls' expressions were either blank or what the hell. As the man began to move strangely and rhymed in their direction, Naruto questioned, who are you? My name is Lord Eight Tails, yeah. Naruto narrowed her eyes instantaneously, recognizing the person. As the atmosphere around her changed and Tenten began to feel uneasy, Naruto said, Tenten? Summon Drake and get back. As Naruto released her gravity seal, Tenten nodded, comprehending the tone of her voice. Tenten exclaimed, summoning jutsu, as a dragon leapt into the air and took off, carrying Tenten on its back. As she prepared to fight, Naruto said solemnly, "I'll ask you once, I'm looking for a blade that is possibly a meter long that has a spark to it." The muscular, tan man with pale blonde hair gestured to a blade on his back that held 7 other swords and said, "You mean this, baby? Show me your skill, if you don't want to be killed." Naruto's golden dragon eyes were revealed when she opened them after closing them. The 7 swords were thrown into the air by the tan man as he began to unsheathe them. The man caught a sword beneath his elbow and began, "I float." He started catching the other swords under his other elbow, left armpit, right leg, and stomach, saying, "Like a butterfly. And sting like a bee," he said, catching the others with his mouth and right side of his neck. "'Cause I'm the 8-tailed beast." At first glance, Naruto's fighting style seems highly unconventional. As Naruto blocked him with her sword, the man leapt into the air while spinning, and she had to block another blade that she believed was coming from her right elbow or armpit. In any case, she stepped back and blocked it while he persisted in his erratic fighting style. As the man swung 3 of his swords at her, Naruto saw them fly past her, but she chose to ignore them and deflect a stab that would have killed her if she had been focused on the distraction. The battle went on for a while, and Naruto was able to hold his own against this weird guy whose rhymes were beginning to irritate her. After all, what kind of fighter would pause a battle to correct a rhyme he just came up with? Man, he really irritated her. The only injuries she sustained were minor cuts to her clothing, but she was never able to injure this man. She then made the decision to do the quick draw to wrap it up. As she watched, 4 of his swords were sliced in 2, and the others fell apart. As he extracted the blade she was looking for and stabbed it into the ground, the man said, "You got the skill to take the blade, but before you go on your way." She could see that the blade lacked a handle and a guard. How would you like to know the killer be? Naruto's expression was bewildered as she wondered what was wrong with this man. A couple of hours later, as they became acquainted with the 8-tailed beast's container, Naruto called Tenten back. They happened to pass by, and it turned out that all he wanted was some privacy and a fight. He respected Naruto's skill in using a sword and other weapons, which he saw during their battle. Even though Naruto and Tenten struggled to understand his rhymes, he took them to a nearby town for sukiyaki. To avoid him, the 2 girls walked out of the area as politely and swiftly as they could. Despite his kindness, they find it difficult to comprehend him. Orta listened to Naruto's encounter with the killer bee and said, "So you met the 8-tailed container? Seems to be a nice guy, despite the way he talks." As the wind dragon nodded and glided down toward the ground a little distance from Konoha's gates, Naruto said to Orta, "Yeah, I had my suspicion during the fight. I gave him an opening but he didn't take it and we just continued on fighting. Heck, I think it was just a friendly spar and I had a good fight." Before landing, the dragon said, "Here we are." Before Naruto and Orta heard a loud boom and Oikaze dive-bombing in their direction, Orta counted down. 3, 2, 1. With a laughing girl on her back, the dragon halted directly in front of the 2, causing a gust of wind. Oikaze asked the laughing girl on her back, "Had fun, Tenten-chan?" as she staggered off and appeared a little unsteady. She tried to straighten herself out but just nodded as she fell flat on her. The dragon said, "I'll take that as a yes," before bidding Orta farewell and poofing off. Tenten nodded, and she said, "We should go back to the village now, so how do you like the trip?" Naruto asked the girl who was grinning. Tenten nodded to Naruto and said, "It was fun. I had a good time and I learned a few things." Reporting on the trip's events, Naruto and Tenten were in the Hokage's office. After learning that Naruto was the brother of the Raikage and that he was fighting the 8-tailed container, the Hokage simply laughed at their expense. However, Naruto and Tenten immediately went home to the hidden sword room after she finished their report. Tenten said, "So what are you doing?" as Naruto placed the Raigen's handle and blade on the room's floor. As she seized the blade and handle and directed her chakra into the swords, Naruto remarked, "Fixing the sword, what do you think?" Both emitted a tiny burst of sparks, and the sparks flew at one another in an attempt to connect, causing the 2 to pulse. A bright yellow light flashed in the room as the 2 connections began to pull each other together. The Raigen was floating in the air, occasionally releasing sparks, when the light went out. Although the Raigen appeared to be a katana, Naruto was aware that it had a sealed form. It is currently in a light purple sheath with a tan handle and a lightning bolt guard. The sword's power was sensed by both Naruto and Tenten, and after its moment, it fell to the ground. Tenten looked at the little screen and asked, "That's it? No hallelujah or fireworks, just a flash?" Naruto pushed Tenten out of the room and closed the door after picking up the sword and displaying it on a wall holder. "Just a flash." Tenten went on, saying, "No reward or anything?" As Tenten closed the door, Naruto told her, "That's about it." Tenten sulked as Naruto put her arm around the girl's head, saying, "Well, this isn't fair." "Nothing in this world is fair, Tenten." Both Naruto and Tenten are quite happy with themselves after another year. Naruto discovered another lightning dragon sword being used to massacre a small village just 5 months prior. Just before he sliced a bandit in two, Tenten remarked, "Man, these guys don't know when to give up." In order to destroy the threat, Naruto and Tenten must arrive at a small town as soon as possible. The bandits were inside the village when they arrived, so Naruto called forth a dragon outside the town to eliminate the bandits that prowl around the tiny town. A canter is a 2-story creature with wings that have fully developed into arms that are dark orange and brown like armor plates, a thick tail full of spikes, sides full of spikes, green eyes, and 2 large tusks on his lower jaw. This dragon is having a great time slaying the bandits and is undoubtedly suited for combat. The bandits surrounding Naruto were sliced to pieces as she performed a 360 spin with multiple slashes, saying, "Find the ringleader, if he falls the rest will follow." Tenten yelled, "Ryujin Jaka Kasenuchi," as she repeatedly cut in front of her and sheathed her sword as the bandits in front of her crumbled to pieces. However, as Tenten inhaled deeply and exhaled her dragon breath to burn the approaching bandits, more continued to arrive. Tenten swept across the land parallel to the ground, shouting, "Ryujin Jaka Natajiri." The bandits who ran through the flames were sliced in half, waist down. After finishing her bandit bits and assessing the damage, Naruto walked over to Tenten and remarked, "You're getting bloody with those techniques." "True." Tenten is breathing heavily and perspiring. "Those 2 techniques take a lot of chakra to use and you're almost clean out." While taking in as much air as she could, Tenten remarked, "It's all I got other than my dragon breath." When a blue lightning bolt strikes her and Tenten, Naruto nods and uses her sword to create a light shield around them. Naruto looked in the direction of the bolt and saw the ringleader bandit holding a sword, saying, "Looks like there is one more left." Naruto sighed as she instructed Tenten to retreat and prepared to engage in combat with the dragon sword. "Great." A bandit leader holding a dragon sword in his hand. The sword in the bandit leader's hands glowed, suggesting that he was out of it. The weapon in question is a long, double-edged sword with a red hilt, a yellow pommel, and a yellow crossguard. The end of the sword is tied with a red thread. As Naruto deflected the sword attack and was pushed back by the sword's force, the bandit leader charged at her. If that sword could do that, Naruto knew she had to take this battle seriously. The insane bandit persisted in his attack while Naruto avoided a sweep cut that might have sliced open her face. Something dripped from her face as she moved away from the bandit. She felt a small cut that was leaking blood when she reached up to her left cheek. Naruto's left hand glowed green, healing her cheek and wiping the blood off. "TCH, not bad. It's been a while since something is able to cut my skin." As Tenten watched the wind swirl around her sister, she started to channel chakra into her sword, saying, "If that sword is able to cut open my skin, then I will have to go all out." As she felt the Okatana grasp her hand, Naruto heard in her mind, "So we are fighting together, I see." As she pulled out her sword, Naruto yelled, "Slice through the heavens, Excellion." The bandit was struck by the wave of light, which caused the building to collapse on top of him. Tenten's eyes were filled with admiration as she watched her sensei wield her sword in that manner. The bandit had numerous gash wounds that should have prevented him from moving, and the building's collapse erupted in blue lightning. He started running in Naruto's direction, who was waiting for the bandit to approach with her sword sheathed. She used the quick draw technique when he got close enough to Naruto, and Tenten only saw her sheathe the sword back after revealing an inch of the blade. Her attack was evident in the bandit's torso being cut diagonally, the lower waist being cut in half, the head falling off, and the bandit's arm being severed while still attached to the sword. It is a very gory scene to witness. At the demonstration of her sister's sword skills, Tenten exclaimed, "So cool," and threw Naruto to the ground in an attempt to teach him the quick draw technique. While pleading with Tenten to teach her the technique she just performed, Naruto questioned, "Don't you already have 2 sword techniques?" When Naruto saw Tenten using the puppy dog eye technique on her, she gave in and then became alert when she sensed a terrible aura. Okay, I'll teach you the technique once we finish up here and head back to Konoha." The sword glowed red as she turned to face it. Tenten reached for the sword and said, "What's up with the sword?" But Naruto grabbed her hand and held it away. Tenten nodded as Naruto said, "If I were you, I wouldn't touch it." As Naruto started to study the sword, he saw that it appeared to be enraged at someone or something. "It sure is pissed at someone." Tenten questioned, "At who?" as he wondered how a sword could still be furious. When the glowing sword started to spark wildly, Naruto said, "Don't know, I might as well get this over with already." Tenten initially became perplexed when she noticed her sister was engulfed in blue chakra, which swirled around her as she reached for the sword. As the sword attempted to take control of Naruto's body, its aura traveled up his arm, but Naruto held it back until the sword applied more force. Yes, it is persistent as she prevented herself from being overcome by the aura of the sword, Naruto pondered. With white chakra now consuming him, Naruto nodded and accepted Excelion's assistance. Indeed, do you need help? Tenten observed as her sister's chakra encircled her, surpassing the aura of the sword and starting to transform into a standard katana. The katana now has a red hilt and a black sheath with a cross guard and an X-shaped window. Naruto was now perspiring and breathing laboriously after the sword changed into a katana. Tenten, concerned that the sword had hurt her, asked, "Are you okay, sis?" As she performed hand seals, Naruto said, "If fine, just a bit tired." She was extremely worn out but still had a ton of chakra. "Could you grab the sword for me?" As Naruto called forth Orda and the dragon carried the two girls back to Konoha, Tenten nodded and proceeded to carefully pick up the sword. One of the swords Naruto discovered was that one. When Naruto was dispatched to conduct treaty delegations in other villages, she discovered a few dormant dragon swords in shinobi shops throughout the elemental nation and paid for each one. Additionally, Tenten discovered a legendary dragon sword in the hands of a bandit, though it appears to be unfinished. The sword was recognizable to Tia as a component of the Earth Dragon Kenkan. Tia had to explain that she would need to locate the remaining piece to finish the sword, which appeared to be the end of a naginata, knowing that she would be going on a tag with her sensei to find the other piece. Tenten sighed. However, Naruto took a moment to teach her the quick draw technique. Similar to the lightning sword, another sword caused her problems, but this time it was different because it is associated with darkness. She had to battle a dragon inside the sword this time. This dragon inside the sword is actually the tyrant dragon of the blade. Tia told her she must kill the tyrant and bring the sword's dragon back, just like in her tests. If you lose to the dragon, these swords are just as dangerous as the one with lightning and body control, but if you win and give it a master, you will receive a reward, but that will be for later. She has only seen 2 cases of this type thus far. After defeating the tyrant, Naruto returned the sword to the storage room. They seek a master to wield them, just like the other swords she discovered. Though she doesn't want to ruin someone else's chance of owning that sword, Naruto could use them if she so desired. She has the swords in the hidden room because she spoke with them and realized that they want a master to hold their power, but they are patient and will wait until the end of the world. Naruto asked Sarutobi, "What's the mission?" and she put away a red book that she knew was the one Jiraiya had written about her test. As Naruto nodded her head and waited, the Sandaime said, "Just wait a minute, the team will come in soon." As he waited for the team he had requested, the elderly man inquired, "How has your sister's training been going over the year?" She is a quick learner when it comes to weapons. She just finished learning how to hold a naginata and a battle axe last week, and she is currently working on a dual sword staff. Her taijutsu is chunin level due to the dragon claw, and she knows a few fire techniques. Her genjutsu is non-existent. Her chakra level is jonin. She learned how to walk on water, and she is jonin or higher with kenjutsu. Naruto tallied Tenten's knowledge in a year and found that while she is beginning to learn how to hold Ryujin Jaka's power, she is still unable to withstand the flames just yet. As the Hokage beckoned the team inside, there was a knock on the door. Someone Naruto has worked with a few times is the first to enter. The Green Beast and Konoha's taijutsu master is Maeda Guy. Naruto would claim that the man could fight on an equal footing with her in taijutsu, if not defeat her, if they engaged in combat. Although she is capable of defeating Jiraiya in taijutsu, she is unsure that she could defeat a taijutsu master such as Guy. Yes, she would lose to Guy in taijutsu since he could open the gates and he most likely has weights. She might also have her gravity seal at 4. His students are Team, whom he dubbed Team Guy, then follow him. The first pupil resembled Guy's name, Rock Lee, in miniature with his green spandex suit, orange leg warmer, and bandaged arms. He looks exactly like Guy due to his inability to use chakra effectively. The little beast must rely on his taijutsu. The other pupil is a Hyuga. Neji Hyuga has been discussing how fate controls his life and appeared to be very stoic. She noticed the final student, who remembered her from when she had saved the children from the root hideout. With her red long hair in a braid like Naruto's and her red eyes, Hikaru Inuzuka lacks the wildness of the Inuzuka family, but she still has adorable sharp fangs. She has a very light brown pup by her side that Naruto identified as a wolf hybrid, and her clan markings on her cheeks resemble a downward flame, indicating that she is from the Inuzuka clan. She is dressed in blue shorts, blue sandals, a sleeveless white jacket with light brown fur on the hood, and a gray shirt. She has traits that people don't see in an Inuzuka, like her red hair and eyes that have a strong affinity for fire, which is why Danzo took her ability to channel fire manipulation into her partner. Hikari, the female pup's name, reveals that she is highly skilled in her family's clan techniques. The green beast's voice boomed. Team Guy is ready for a mission, Hokage-sama, while the puppy folded its ears and Hikaru and Neji had their ears plugged. The Hokage informed the team of their upcoming mission, saying, "Ah Guy, you made it. Now the mission U5 will go investigate a village that has reported that a small group of bandits are getting ready to raid the town, and the bandits are being led by a missing nin." As Team Guy looked perplexed and wondered what he meant, Naruto nodded and said, "I think this missing nin has one of your swords you mentioned to me." As Guy studied the mission scroll, Sarutobi handed it to him and said, "Okay, Guy, you are leading this mission and Naruto is your support. This will help your team develop some experience for your team." Before Guy continued talking about the flames of youth, Naruto simply walked out of the room. "Yosh, Team Guy, let's meet at the North Gate in an hour to start the mission." Guy's voice boomed to the three. An hour later, the Black Panther was concealed in Tenten's shadow as Naruto and Tenten arrived at the North Gate, where Team Guy was waiting. Guy pumped his fist and exclaimed, "Yosh, Naruto-kun, you made it just in time, and I see you brought your youthful student with you." Tenten had a "what the hell" expression on her face, and Naruto simply nodded. With a nod, Tenten said to Naruto, "Ah, sis, he reminds me of that Killer Bee character." Tenten couldn't understand much of Guy's speech about youth, so Naruto said, "At least we can understand him." Tenten gave Naruto a beseeching look, requesting that her sister stay behind and train. She will make up for it later, Naruto assured her. While traveling to the mission site, Naruto sensed that someone was observing her and saw that Hikaru was admiring her. Naruto, moving at a ninja pace, jumping from tree to tree, asked, "Anything you want to ask, Hikaru?" As her partner yipped in agreement while being carried in Hikaru's hood, Hikaru blushed and said, I just want to thank you for, saving me from Rude 2 years ago." Naruto said, "No problem, is there anything you would like me to do?" to the blushing, naive girl. As Hikaru considered her options, she said to Naruto, "I was wondering if you have anything to teach me. Guy-sensei is a good teacher, but he isn't able to teach me any fire techniques." With tears in his eyes, Guy remarked, "That is true, Naruto-kun. She is very good in taijutsu and it pains me that I can't teach her any fire techniques." Naruto remarked, "I suppose I could give her some advice and training methods." Hikaru squealed in delight at receiving instruction from the Ryu Sennin. The group would arrive in the town the following day after stopping to camp in a nearby location. Naruto slammed her hands to the floor, yelling, "Wood style! 4-pillar house jutsu!" as a tiny house lifted off the ground. Everyone appreciates Guy's quiet remark, "I see you can use the Shodem's techniques. It's useful for this kind of thing. There are seals on the house that no one can sense it, so anyone sleeping inside will sleep peacefully," Naruto stated to Guy and his colleagues. Guy, Neji, and Lee took one room, while Naruto, Tenten, and Hikaru took another. As she removed her coat and placed herself on her sleeping bag, Naruto asked, "So, Hikaru, what do you know of fire manipulation?" Tenten and Narga were also present, and they spooked Hikaru and her pup when it emerged from Tenten's shadow but calmed down when it nuzzled against Naruto. As she petted her partner, Hikaru was considering what she knew about fire manipulation. With little knowledge of fire manipulation, Hikaru remarked, "Not much, I could do the fireball technique and that is about it." Naruto nodded, realizing that Hikaru had just graduated from the academy 2 months prior and had most likely only received taijutsu and chakra control training from Guy. Naruto performed a silence jutsu to ensure that no noise could enter or exit the room. "Yosh! If I don't fall asleep in 10 seconds then I will." Tenten and Hikaru both exclaimed, "Thank you," with a sigh of relief, not wanting to hear Guy and Lee argue over who could go to sleep first. Poor Neji. The girl nodded, indicating that she knew how to run up trees. "You know tree climbing?" Naruto asked. "I guess we could start with the basics for now." Tenten had a tiny flame on her thumb and snapped her fingers as if lighting a lighter. Naruto clasped her hands together as if she were collecting water and said, "That is the basic of fire manipulation training. No fire chakra has a burning feeling, so concentrate on your chakra and make your chakra burn. This is also a good way for practicing controlling chakra." Hikaru complied with Naruto's orders. She collected chakra in her hands and remained there for a while. Naruto had to intervene to stop Hikaru as she became agitated and the chakra started to flutter. The girl nodded, taking everything Naruto said to heart. "If I were you, Hikaru, I'd stay calm when you practice this exercise. It takes time and patience to learn this type of training and you are still young, so take it easy before you injure yourself. Hikari curled up on top of the girl as she practiced the exercise until she fainted from chakra exhaustion. As Naruto slept on Naruto's arm and purred, Naruto remarked, "She lasted longer than I expected." As Tenten fell asleep, she remarked, "Hikaru-san has a lot of chakra and looked very determined. Get some sleep, Tenten, you'll need it for tomorrow." Good morning. After waking up, the 6 shinobi ate breakfast, made a backup plan, cancelled the house, and headed directly for the town. When they arrived, Guy assumed command and instructed his students to conduct some recon with Tenten and Naruto while he spoke with the client. Naruto visited the forest outside the town where the bandit was allegedly spotted. Summoning Jutsu. As the smoke cleared, a serpentine earth dragon with arms, legs, and 2 horns sprang out at its cheek. Its skin resembled brown scales. The small earth dragon looked around and said, "Ah, I am summoned at last." It made a strange squeaky sound. "Mimizu at your service, mistress." The little dragon nodded and sniffed the air before Naruto said, "I need you to search for bandits around this area." As she continued to sniff the air, Mimizu remarked, "Yup, bandits have been in this area." As it recognized something, Mimizu started to sniff more intensely. "Alcohol, probably sake. What's this?" The little dragon squealed, "It's Master Kenkan," before plunging into the earth and heading somewhere. "Yeah, come back and report later," Naruto told herself as she returned to the city. Tenten and Neji were fighting when Naruto returned to the group. Tenten was furious and smirked at Neji. "The Ryu clan don't steal our power from dragons. We fight together and live together like family," Tenten cried. Neji had that smirk on his face, but it vanished when Naruto used all of her dragon presence ability, forcing him to kneel down and try to breathe as much as he could. "That's the point. Your clan can't rely on your own skill and rely on dragons, while we Hyuga work on our skill." Tenten turns to see her sister scowling at Neji. Says the servant who relies on the main branch. "You say that the Ryu clan rely on dragons, then I say the branch family of the Hyuga rely on the main branch. If I put it that way, you're not really a Hyuga. You're just a nobody that holds the Hyuga name." I'm sure that the Hyuga understands this but doesn't want to let the village know about it, of how inhumane it is. When Neji attempted to move, Naruto made sure he remained on his knees. Naruto approached the boy who was kneeling and remarked, "You're just a servant of the main branch, Neji." As she held her dragon presence to allow the boy to stand up, he continued to breathe deeply. Naruto said, "The way you put it is that the Ryu clan dragons are superior to me and Tenten. Well, it is true compared to them. We are just children. So yeah, our clan is alike to the Hyuga, but the difference between us is that we are not slaves, but more like a family." Tenten just ignored him. He doesn't know humility, so he doesn't understand anything. Tenten gave Neji a pathetic glance after nodding, and then he caught up to Naruto. Neji looked up at the voice and saw Guy atop a house. "I'd take her words to heart, Neji." Neji disregards his advice and simply shrugs it off. Guy sounded very wise, which alarmed Neji because it is difficult to see someone like that. She has the power of dragons in her grasp, but she doesn't proclaim it to the world. You, on the other hand, Neji, you let your name get the better of you and you have this attitude that is only harming your youth. Guy said. Neji simply nodded and proceeded to the restaurant, the meeting spot they had all decided upon. Naruto asked the children, "So what do we know?" As her dog yipped, Hikaru remarked, "Well, me and Hikari smelled a nasty stench outside of town. The residents of the town are prepared to depart at any moment," Lee's voice said. Tenten, still enraged from the argument, was eating lunch with Ryujin Jaka in her mind. She had been demanding that Neji be punished for insulting the Ryu clan, and since Naruto had done what she had done, he felt that was sufficient punishment. Until someone stormed into the restaurant, the group carried on with their meeting. A thump. OWWWW. The group exclaimed as they turned to listen for the source of the noise. What the hell did I hit? The group heard a few taps against wood and a shuffling sound coming from beneath the wooden floor. Mistress. Mistress. As everyone heard more shuffling, Naruto said, "Ah, you're under the wooden floor, Mimizu." The floor then opened like a trapdoor, and Team Guy received a life-altering shock when a dragon emerged. Mimizu returned beneath the floor after saying, "I got something for you." Team Guy turned to face Naruto, curious to see what it was. The team nodded when Naruto remarked, "That is one of the many summon dragons I have, and that is a recon dragon." With a sword in her tail, Mimizu emerged from the hole. Mimizu shows Naruto the other half of Kenkan and says, "I found Mistress Kenkan." Hers is a 1.5 black pole with a gold guard with 2 horns pointing to the curved 1-foot blade and a gold pommel that resembled a locking mechanism. This one has the same black pole, but it has the same curved blade and a yellow gold dragon that is coiled from the pommel to the circular guard. As Naruto held up a scroll, the little dragon beamed and dragged Naruto and the others out of the restaurant and into the forest. "Please tell me you got the other half of the mistress?" the dragon begged. "Hurry, we have to revive her and find her an heiress." She pulled out the other half of Kenkan, and Naruto said, okay, just keep calm anyways. How did you get the other half?" As she paced back and forth, Mimizu reported what she saw of the bandits. Well, there were many bandits that are numbered to 136 armed with swords and spears, and some looked like rogue samurai. The leader of the group looked like a shinobi with that weird pattern headband that looked like a stone or hill with a line across it. He was the one who had the mistress. Guy remarked, "A runaway nin." As Naruto started to forge the 2 blades before it shrank to 2 ninjatus in a brown wooden sheath. They locked together at the pommel as it started to glow. Naruto tied the 2 together and threw them to Tenten, who cheerfully examined them before fastening them to her back. "There, any idea until they attack?" Mimizu informed them that they were merely using the customary raid the village tactic. "They were getting ready when I got there and were forming a plan, but I was on my way back to town with the sword, but I heard everything underground." The little dragon nodded, then ran to Tenten, climbed up, coiled around the 2 ninjatus, and peered over her shoulder. "So a basic raid?" Guy asked. On Tenten's shoulder and back, Mimizu uttered, "I'm staying. I have to find an heiress for the mistress." The earth dragon simply tightened around the blades and clung to Tenten's request, "Could you please get off of me?" Tenten simply sighed when Naruto inquired about the qualities the dragon is seeking in an heiress. "Not until I find an heiress for the mistress." The little dragon listed all the qualities that Naruto and Guy considered in a potential heiress. The mistress requires an exotic woman who is feared by men, doesn't take crap from anyone, sadistic, loves sweets, kind to friends, excellent negotiator, and aligned to earth. When Naruto noticed Guy's anxious expression, she blurted out, "Okay, that will be difficult to find in a woman." Then she recalled a particular viper. Naruto didn't finish until he noticed Guy nodding his head. "Oh no, she doesn't mean, oh, the council isn't going to like this, but I sure am going to have fun with getting straight with them." Knowing that the particular heiress had recently had her life turned around made Guy smile. In Konoha, the aforementioned heiress was enjoying her break when she choked on the food she was supposed to be eating because she sneezed. Kurenai said, "Ah, Anko. I told you to eat slowly," while giving the woman who was choking a back slap. As she resumed eating her sweets, Anko said, "Thanks, Kure-chan." Returning to Team Guy, Naruto started to reflect on her experiences with the Viper and recalled her first meeting with her, saying, "She's basically everything you mentioned, but the negotiating, I'm not really sure about that." When she realized she had been given the raw end of the bargain, she let out a sigh. Naruto inquired about this heir issue, saying, "Okay, maybe she is the heiress. Wait a minute, Mimizu, what is with these heirs?" The little earth dragon pointed to Tenten and then back to Naruto, saying, "Well, since you started the revival of the dragon blood, the legendary dragon blades need an heir to help rebuild the clan. Haku-kun and Tenten-chan are to help rebuild your clan. You need to find Raijin an heir, and just to let you, that isn't his real name. It is a title like Hirenmaru's the Ice Dragon King. Anyways, you need to find Sunga the Wind Dragon Sword and Yamato the Dark Dragon Sword and find them an heir. Each dragon has specifics that they want in an heir. Hirenmaru wants a kind soul in his heir, as Ryujin Jaka wants a fiery soul with swordsmanship in his heir. Kenkan, on the other hand, wants a kick-ass heiress," the tiny dragon said while giving a passion in her voice. With tears in his eyes, Guy exclaimed, "It would seem that Tenten's flames of youth burn bright to be the flame heiress." Hearing about Lee's youth speech, which was disregarded by everyone, made everyone except Lee sigh. Naruto attracted the attention of the young duels by saying, "Okay, back with the bandits. We should get back on the topic of the bandits that are going to attack the town." "Oh yes, the unyouthful bandits," exclaimed Guy as he started giving orders to his group to defend the town. "Naruto-kun, can I rely on you to take on the missing nin while we handle the bandits? Can you leave your youthful student Tenten to help my youthful students?" Guy asked Naruto. Tenten scowled at the dragon on her left shoulder for forcing her to accompany the strange man, and Mimizu remarked, "Mistress Tenten can handle those weaklings without using her sword." Tenten shifted her shoulders slightly to experience the uncomfortable sensation of extra weight and asked, "How long are you going to stay on me?" "According to the Earth Dragon, until I find the heiress." Naruto told Guy, "Yeah, Tenten can help you out." Guy nodded. Guy yelled to his students, "Yosh team, let's go protect this youthful town." Tenten groaned as he and Lee began to embrace, the sunset, waves, and ocean in the background making Tenten glare at her sister. Naruto sheepishly rubbed her neck and left to locate the missing nin in charge of the bandits, saying, "You owe me big for this." Alongside Team Guy, Mimizu informed Team Guy and Tenten which way they were coming from, and they were waiting on the east side of town. Mimizu told the Green Beast, "It shouldn't be a problem with your Team Guy-san, because the bandits are just your average civilian with a weapon." Guy told his team, "Thanks for the information, Mimi-san. Alright, team, be ready to defend this town." Neji activated his Byakugan. Hikaru shook herself in preparation for battle. Guy simply stood there with his arms crossed and grinning blindingly. Tenten pulled out a scroll, released a naginata from it, and swirled it around to get into a groove, while Lee began stretching himself. Upon seeing the naginata, the dragon perched on Tenten's shoulder inquired, "So you are a weapon mistress?" As the group saw the first wave of bandits, Tenten told the dragon, "Yes, I am the clan's weapon master, and I already have a huge amount of weapons with me." "Okay team, defend the young town from these bandits," Guy exclaimed as he dashed in the direction of the bandits. Guy swore, "Dynamic entry," and kicked several of the bandits. Lee yelled, "Yes Guy-sensei," and began punching a bandit in the face while employing his fighting technique known as the strong fist. Neji disabled some of the bandits by adopting the Hyuga stance. As her partner jumped on her back and transformed into an exact replica of Hikaru, Hikaru exclaimed, "Ready Hikari," and went to her knees, becoming somewhat untamed. Both sprinted over to the bandits, sank their dual-piercing fangs into them, and proceeded to knock out the bandits in their path. When Tenten saw that Guy's team had failed to kill any of the bandits, she swirled the naginata and struck bandit after bandit with the back end of the blade. "So, how are you going to show off?" the dragon asked. "They're going to have to see the hard truth of being a shinobi soon, but they are not ready for it yet." Tenten nodded as she proceeded to take out the bandits she was pursuing. Following the conflict, after witnessing Team Guy tying up the bandits and sending them to the Anbu for questioning, Naruto returned to the battlefield brandishing a scroll. After Tenten had completed tying up a gang of bandits, Naruto asked, "How'd it go?" Tenten noted to Team Guy, who were leaning against a tree, that they were not much of a challenge. Lee has a few scrapes but is fine after applying ointment. Hikaru and her pup are dead tired from using her clan's techniques over and over again. Neji is also tired of using the gentle fist. And Guy is tying up the rest of the bandits. The Anbu will be here in an hour to pick them up later. As Team Guy got up and started to return to the town, Naruto remarked, "This ends the mission then." Returning to Konoha, Tenten exclaimed, "Finally we are back," as she saw Konoha okay, so she's glad to be free of the green beast at last. As she made her way to the Hokage tower, Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder and said, "You don't have to shout, Tenten. I know your patience is getting thin, but I'll make it up to you." Tenten and Naruto both felt a pulse as they arrived at the tower. The small dragon on Tenten's back exclaimed, "The heiress is near," as the ninjatus dragged Tenten along with them. "Heal LLLLPPPPPPPP," Tenten cried out as the swords on her back pulled her from the ground as Mimizu sat on her chest searching for the heiress. She was kicking and screaming. Naruto turned to face Guy and gave him the scroll, saying, "There they go. You mind reporting for me?" As Naruto followed Tenten's cries, Guy accepted the scroll and said, "Sure, Naruto-kun, give Anko my regards." As she followed Tenten to the Forest of Death, Naruto had to reassure the shinobi that were pursuing her not to worry. Tenten, who was being pulled by a dragon sword with her arms crossed and a sullen expression, stopped screaming. Alongside Anko, after torturing, questioning some inmates, she felt she deserved a break, so she bought a box of dango and relaxed in her paradise. Just before she bit into a dango on a stick, Anko asked, "Dango, what would I do without you?" She saw her charge devouring her day's hunt when she heard a growl from the ground like Dragon Narga. Anko said, "Hello to you too," and went back to munching on her snack. Then she heard something growing louder as it was being dragged. As she turned to face the source, she noticed a strange scene in which Tenten was being pulled by an unseen force while a dragon gazed up at her from the tree. She noticed the expression that would frighten any man when Tenten was beneath her. Before she leapt from her branch, Anko asked, "What happened to you?" Tenten got up, took off the two ninjatus from her back, and gave them to her before leaving, complaining that she was demanding earth dragons. Speaking of earth dragons, Anko was being examined by the one perched atop Tenten. The dragon looked at her from all sides, inspected her hair, peered into her coat, and observed her attire. The earth dragon squealed, "You're perfect," and Anko gave him a strange look. With the weapons in her hand glowing yellow and engulfing her, Anko questioned, perfect for what? She felt somewhat calmer after it subsided. What the hell was that? Anko saw Naruto land in front of her as she peered into the trees and said, Kenkan shows you. Anko nodded, recalling the commotion the civilian council created that day, and then took a bite out of a dango before Naruto asked, you remember how Tenten entered the Ryu clan? Well, this is your initiation of joining. Naruto swatted Anko back to clear her throat while she choked on the dango she was holding in her mouth. Anko took another dango stick from the box, oblivious to the fact that she had just choked on one. That's that second one this week. What do you mean this is my initiation? She asked. Naruto started by telling Anko that she is the ideal heiress for the Earth Dragon Sword and that he is searching for heirs for the Dragon Swords. When Mimizu revealed the ideal heiress to her, Anko echoed Naruto's words, wow, the council sure is going to hate this. Mimizu stood in front of Anko and asked, so are you going to take the seat? As Mimizu climbed up Anko and appeared to examine the seal she was wearing, Anko told the Earth Dragon, I don't know about this, I still have this problem with the cursed seal. Mimizu examined the seal before leaping off the woman, saying, this is nothing, I can see that there is a soul within this seal and some weird enzyme. Anko shook her head no when the dragon asked, did you ever use it? Then you shouldn't worry about it. Kenkan-sama will destroy the soul in the seal and fight off the enzyme, giving you a new body and powers. Naruto looked down at the aforementioned Earth Dragon and said, you sure know a lot about seals for a recon Earth Dragon. I know, but I am also the Earth Dragon's advisor. All elemental dragons in the 7 elements have an advisor. One is the lightning boss dragon and one is teaching hatchlings to fly. Mimizu said as she explained her position to Naruto. Examining the 2 ninjatus in her hands, Anko questioned, so if I join your clan then I become just like you? Naruto only had to say, yes, not to mention you can cause a major blow to the civilian council. Anko agreed to be the heiress of the Earth Dragons. The following day, according to Naruto's statements, in response to Anko's crimes, the civilian council demanded that the Ryu clan reimburse the village for its treasures. This only caused her to laugh at their fruitless attempts to seize her dragon swords. Since he thought of ahead, the Hokage had no choice but to dissolve the civilian council, and he has the support of the daimyo to support his decision. Since the civilian council is no longer in existence, the Sandaime must choose a new one, and he has already considered the populace. Naruto went on to say that Anko Mitarashi was the perfect fit for her clans, which she was seeking members for. Koharu said, that snake woman doesn't deserve to be in a clan, because he didn't want the snake Sanin's apprentice to be given a clan seat. Naruto addressed the council from her clan seat, saying, snake woman she may be, but she just evolved arms, legs, and wings, leaving the snakeskin she left behind and learned to fly. Sume, who was standing next to her on the clan side of the council, told Naruto, nice speech there girl. The civilian council was furious that Naruto was taking someone as treacherous as the snake's apprentice, and he responded, I know, I just thought of it just now. Koharu kept getting nods from the remaining members of the civilian council when he said, but she is an apprentice of the snake Sanin. Not even glancing at the advisor as she filed her nails, Naruto remarked, so, she proved herself many times that she is loyal to Konoha. It's not my fault that people still hold grudges. Sume chuckled as she pushed the advisor's buttons, asking, so how is little Hikaru doing? Sume. Recalling how the young girl gets along with the pups in the compound, Sume remarked, she's like a daughter to me and Hana. She learns the family techniques quick and gets along with the pups. Koharu scowled at the dragon sage and said, we are having a meeting here. Naruto turned to face the Hokage and remarked, I thought that ended a few minutes ago. Is she always like judging people like this? I'm afraid so. She did the same thing with Tsukumo Hitaki, and I think she is the cause for making the civilians and Shinobi think he did the wrong decision, resulting to his seppuku, thus resulting to weakening our forces during the war. The Sandaime replied without looking at the woman suspiciously. Now that I think about, you have caused more harm than good, Koharu. As the elderly woman glared at him, Homura told the council, she has been agreeing with the suggestions that Danzo made during these meetings. Koharu attempted to defend herself, saying, everything I did is to help Konoha be strong. Naruto smirked, causing that old hag to make a poor choice, and having that snake woman in her clan, not to mention that cursed seal connects her to that snake. Seeing the woman's shocked expression, Naruto remarked, I'm afraid not. The cursed seal of heaven is no longer on her and has been removed. That seal has been causing trouble with her from the moment it was on her. Knowing that the cursed seal has made it difficult for Anko to control her chakra, the Sandaime nodded. I learned that the seal has caused major damage to her. If she didn't have it from the start, she would have been one of the Hokage's finest. The Sandaime inquired, Where is she right now? As Naruto started explaining that she was recuperating at home after the curse seal was removed. Since she didn't use it, she only had a slight weakness, but with a merge of one of my swords, she will be back to normal in a day or two, if not better than ever, Naruto said. There is one problem with removing that curse seal. She was lucky that she didn't use it, or else the removal of the seal will result to a bedridden life. The old man nodded, aware that he had gained a powerful kunoichi under his ranks. Koharu expressed disapproval of the current situation and said, Anko Mitarashi should be contained and be prepared for the breeding program. The Hokage and the other members of the clan council grinned. Naruto smiled inwardly and said, Hokage-sama, I think advisor Koharu is not fit for her position. Tsume joins Naruto in removing a nuisance by saying, I agree with Naruto that Koharu is just causing harm. Putting logic into the decision, Shibi Aburame stated, I agree with Naruto-kun that advisor Koharu has made illogical decisions that caused harm. Without bothering to express his thoughts, Heihachi Hyuga nodded in agreement. Shikaku's teammates agreed with him when he said, it's troublesome to have her on the council. The removal of Koharu was approved by every member of the clan council, and since there are no civilian members, she is voted out of office. The council can now do more than line their own pockets, and the old man grinned since Homura has been watching out for Konoha's interests and is more level-headed than Koharu. He didn't mind his other advisor, however. Because of her, he was only able to do so much for the village, and all of those choices seemed appropriate at the time. Naruto and Heihachi were summoned to the Hokage's office following the conclusion of the meeting. Naruto eyed the Hyuga in the room and asked, what is this about? Heihachi remarked, this is what you said about Neji. Naruto sighed, forgetting her brief encounter with that stick in Hyuga's ass. Before you speak, I agree with what you said about the clan. The bird cage seal was meant to protect the Hyuga clan, but over time the seal turned into a form to hold power over the branch members. The elders want to keep tradition, but they will cause the fall of my clan if this continues. You saw how Neji turned out because of the seal. Yeah, Naruto acknowledged, unsure of his direction. Heihachi questioned the woman, you are aware about the bird cage seal, right? Recalling her seal lessons, Naruto remarked, yeah, the seal that was used for prisoners of war. Naruto pulled out a scroll, unrolled it, and displayed an image of a prisoner wearing the same seal that the Hyuga use, saying, the birdcage seal is just a cover-up for the prisoner seal. The seal originated from the First Shinobi War when they were not able to control the prisoners. A seal master created the seal to keep the prisoners in charge, but after the war was over the person who created the seal died along with how to make the seal, so there have been no prisoners with seals in the Second War. Wondering how the woman obtained that scroll, the elderly man nodded. Heihachi nodded as Naruto remarked, I'm guessing a Hyuga found a scroll and created the birdcage seal. Regarding the scroll, the elderly man inquired, by the way Naruto, what is that you're holding? Heihachi's eyes widened as he considered finally removing the birdcage seal. Oh, this. I found it during my travels with Jiraiya. It turned out that this is the scroll to remove the prisoner seal. As the woman in front of him considered, Heihachi said, Naruto-san, by any chance can you remove the birdcage seal? The old man nodded before turning on the privacy seals on the walls he had Naruto install. Yeah, I could remove it if I have time, and if you hand me the scrolls for applying the birdcage seal. Over time the Hyuga must have changed a few things with the seal. Let me guess, there is more to this. With a nod, the elderly man allowed Heihachi to go on. Heihachi openly stated, I need help with eliminating the elders. Naruto grasped the message. After giving it some thought, Naruto remarked, that's so? Secrecy is a must, I assume. The elderly man nodded. Then I can't help you. Your elders may be old, but with their numbers and years of experience, I won't be able to kill them, and not to mention I might destroy your compound. In the hopes that the woman could assist him with the clan, Heihachi said, I see. Are you sure there isn't anything you can do? Recalling how the civilian council demanded that she turn over her swords, Naruto questioned, how desperate are your elders for getting a hold of one of my dragon swords? Hating that the Hyuga had to go to such lengths to recruit a member into their clan, Heihachi remarked, very. Ever since Tenten became one of your members, and they have been planning to have a branch member get involved with her. Why? Let's just say, be careful what you wish for. Meeting of Hyuga elders 2 days later. Heihachi is late. It's 10 minutes till the meeting starts, calm down. When the Heihachi entered the meeting room, the elder Hyuga assembled and waited. What's inside the box? Don't know, it's been there since I got here. The box is now the focus of the elder's attention. What's inside? Don't know, open it. You open it. Would you just open it already? It's just a sword. To examine the box, One Hyuga activated his Byakugan. All of the members thought of the swords that the Ryu Sennin had been looking for after he said that. As soon as they saw the sword, all of the elders in the room leapt to open the box. It is a long nodashi with a thin blade that is curved at the end. An elder snatched up the sword and began to scream as a black-looking chakra engulfed him. Soon after, there were more screams. An hour later, Naruto followed Hiyashi to the clan meeting room and inquired, so it worked. Then she smelled the strong smell of blood-stained walls, mutilated bodies scattered throughout the room, and guts and blood on the floor were the first things she saw when she walked in. Naruto covered her nose and swore at the stench, saying, "You could have cleaned the room before you brought me here." Hiyashi pointed to the center of the room, where an elder was standing, holding on to the sword stabbed into the floor, holding up what was left of him. Sorry, no one didn't want to enter the room when they saw that. Given that his hand is now entirely bone, his entire body appeared to have been skinned alive. Naruto, trying to stay as far away from the blood as possible, walked to the Masamune and declared, "It is one of the deadliest swords I have found." Hiyashi asked, remaining in the doorway without intervening, "Is that why you have to find these swords?" "Yes, there are swords that could just take over the body that holds it, and if the person is weak it will destroy the mind and take control of the body. What you see here," Naruto looked at the elderly man. Naruto reached down to the corpse and took its hand away, saying, "Is what happens if the body is not strong enough." She took hold of the sword's hilt and transformed it into a standard katana. There are a few double-edged dragon swords out there that could give you power but eat away at your life if you're not strong enough, and this is one of them. There we go. As Naruto shook her head, Hiyashi questioned, "I assume that no one will be able to use it." "Not just anyone. There are 3 classes of dragon blades out there. The first class is the sleeping blade. These ones sleep and wakes up until a suitable wielder comes by and goes back to sleep if that wielder doesn't pick it up, and not to mention that they could be passed on to a next wielder that they see fit," Hiyashi was told by Naruto. "The second class is the one that would just take over the wielder's body if it is weak and start killing all in its path. Very few contain this class, and there are very few of this class." Naruto recalled the lightning sword. The Masamune is a second-class creature, according to Hiyashi. Not disclosing to Hiyashi that the Masamune is a third class and has the ability to give the wielder dragon blood, Naruto stated, "The third class are ones that you will have to fight the dragon inside the sword to wield it. If you lose, then it is second class all over again." Hiyashi would never reveal this information to anyone, not even the Hokage. A few months ago, she vanquished the tyrant dragon and brought the original dragon that resided inside the sword back to life. Naruto simply requested that the dragon take control of the human she had shown him, annihilate everyone in the room, and simply kill the wielders, which he accomplished flawlessly. Hiyashi was informed of the classes by Naruto, but he was not informed of the legendary dragon swords, which are the 4th class. She already knows who owns the 2 that are left for her to locate. Hiyashi summarized Naruto's words, saying, "So I have to contact you before anyone can hold any of these swords." As Naruto left the room, not liking the smell of rotten blood, she said, "Yes, if I think that the sword is just too dangerous like the 2nd and 3rd type, then I will have to seal them up. If anyone finds a 1st type and is chosen, then lucky them. I'll find a way to remove the bird seal in a month or 2. At the Ryu clan house again after returning home, Naruto sighed when she smelled something familiar. When she walked into a living room, she saw Anko on the couch, eating dango and sipping sake, and a ton of boxes with empty sticks. Before she sat the Masamune down and took a bottle of sake and gulped it down, Naruto remarked, "I see you made yourself at home." Before she took another bite of her favorite snack, Anko said, "Yup, thanks for the room by the way, and you don't mind me taking the Ryu name as well?" Naruto sat down on the couch and said, "Go ahead, you are an heiress of the Earth Dragon." Anko inquired, "How'd it go?" regarding the Hyuga matter. She laughed when Naruto told her how bloody the room was and said, "It went well. Masamune here killed the elders and the Hyuga clan will start to prosper. Where is Tenten by the way?" "Oh, the brat, she's outside training." Anko gestured to Tenten, who was once more honing her scythe technique. Anko said to the Ryu clan head, "By the way, I hear that you are taking in students next year. From what I remember, you promised to take in those girls from Root." 2 years have passed since he and Naruto had to part ways. He has only been training and traveling. Haku had to tell the swordsman that he couldn't take on an entire village. Even though Zabuza is still urging him to kill the Mizukage, he cannot match the full force of the devoted shinobi. Even if he is stronger than the 3-tailed container, he doesn't want to be registered as a shinobi just yet, which is what would happen if he joined the rebellion. With steely nerves, he made the decision to go accompanied by Zabuza and the demon brothers Gozu and Maizu. He continued to message Jiraiya about his observations of wind dragons. Along with a few water and wind techniques, he also learned more about ice techniques during his travels. He communicated with Naruto through wind dragons, and they had brief exchanges in which he voiced a message that sounded like their voices, which made them uneasy and led them to continue using scrolls. Haku discovered the dangers of the dragon swords as a result of this. For this reason, he has set out to locate these dragon swords while touring the elemental nations. He has been informed by Naruto that she ranged the swords to Haku. Because Naruto almost died after coming into contact with a third class, he avoided them because of this. As a result, he picked up some additional skills, such as sealing, which he learned from Naruto's scrolls and uses to store any swords he may come across. The Rasengan, which Naruto taught him via scrolls, is among the things he learned. Although he can only perform 3 of them per day, he has already mastered it. In the Udama Rasengan he attempted to add his ice manipulation, but it was too challenging, and Naruto had to inform him that she was only successful at manipulating lightning and was almost done with water and fire due to her mastery of both. Although she has complete control over the other 2, she struggles to add earth and wind because she rarely uses them. Haku reasoned that in order to increase his control over ice and achieve a breakthrough, he must become proficient in wind and water. The water dragon told the people riding on her back, "Haku-san, we are almost to the island." Haku turned back to his subordinates and said to the water dragon, "Thank you, Umi-chan, take your time." As the 2 demon brothers were covered in bandages, Zabuza remarked, "Why are we going to a deserted island, and don't tell me that we are going to find those swords? The last one almost killed the brothers." Haku said, "Okay," and continued to wait for the island to arrive. He said, "Don't tell me," but Zabuza had to fight the urge to beat the living daylights out of him. Zabuza looked out to the ocean, where he saw numerous whirlpools that Umi was negotiating to reach the island. "Hugh, why would one of those swords be on this island anyways? This is too far out to be in Mizu, and if I remember, this used to be where that whirlpool country used to be." Because of the enormous whirlpools they are traversing and the fact that Umi is the best swimmer to navigate them, Haku advised Umi to take her time getting to the island. Haku could have called forth Leviathan, but he needed to save his chakra for any impending battles. "Anyways, what did you do with that sword?" Zabuza inquired about the weapon that had wounded him and injured the 2 brothers. "Iryusui." Haku drew the Tanto, or second-class sword, from his inside pocket, which hurt them. "Well, not really, it just sent out jets of water that felt like being struck by a chair or steel bar, and the sword hosed both brothers down. She won't cause harm now because she was just lonely." Zabuza asked, "What about that sword?" pointing to the katana on Haku's back, which is one of the class 3 dangerous swords. Naruto had mentioned Haku would have had a terrible time battling the tyrannical dragon inside of him if he hadn't been fortunate enough to have one of the peaceful ones who wished to test his loyalty and knowledge. Actually, like the second-class Imazukuhu, every dragon sword he discovered was peaceful. In addition, he has been discovering water-based dragon swords since the beginning, as well as 2 linked katanas known as amikaze, which are second-class in both water and wind, not to mention the numerous first-class swords he discovered in shops and bandits and kept in scrolls. Haku gestured ahead and, as he had stated, the island that was once a powerful nation was in their sights. "Yukishima won't be causing harm if any of you touches it. Anyways, we should be near the island now." After connecting to the beach, the water dragon allowed her passengers to land. Haku addressed the water dragon, saying, "I'll call you on the way back, Umi." Before vanishing, the water dragon said, "Please do. These waters are very dangerous to navigate in, and I don't want Mistress Naruto to have a broken heart if you fall in." Zabuza gestured to the recuperating brothers and said to the flushed Haku, "We should set up camp before we head inside." As Zabuza carried Gozu up the hill and discovered a suitable cave, Haku said, "Let's get to higher ground." He then shook the red from his face and went to pick up Mizu. The brothers started to recover after they made camp, which is why one of them woke up. Mizu, or was it Gozu, who said, "Where is it? Where is it? Get it away from me." They couldn't be certain. Zabuza said, "Calm down, Mizu." He wasn't sure if this was Mizu. After calming down, Mizu examined his bandaged body and said, "We were able to calm the sword down." In order to get the right brother right, Zabuza took a sigh of relief when Mizu asked, "How bad did me and bro get it?" As the group's leader and medic, Haku assured the brothers, "Nothing serious, you just got mild bruising and Gozu got a few injuries that I am able to heal." The 3 were grateful for the leader's healing expertise. After learning of his injuries, Gozu said, "Where are we anyway?" As the 2 widened their eyes in wonder at how they arrived at the island given the ocean's whirlpools, maelstroms, and erratic weather, Zabuza said, "In Whirlpool." Anyways, we should hide out here from the hunters since no one can get here without getting sucked in, and I don't know any ships that could fight through the whirlpools and weather. Haku blew a tiny flame from his mouth to start a fire while nodding. Zabuza told Haku, who had been attempting to extinguish flames, that it had taken him a long time to do so. Took you a while to start a fire. Haku said to the browless swordsman, "Hey, I don't have an alignment with fire since it is my opposite element." He then began adding wood to the fire. After a week, while Haku and Zabuza scouted the island, the demon brothers had healed from their wounds. Haku discovered some first-class swords scattered throughout the village, and both discovered the remnants of the village that had once existed on the island. Haku questioned how a village could have so many of these dragon swords and had to seal a lot of them. He had to seal the few second-class swords he discovered because, based on his observations, every shinobi in the village must possess one of these weapons. The location is actually a dragon sword gold mine. When Haku sent her a message about an island full of swords, Zabuza walked behind him and watched him seal a third-class sword that Naruto had given him. "What's with this place?" she asked. It is a 4-point containment seal that Haku is performing with a kanji for repression on each corner. He encircles the sword with a diamond pentagram. He confines it with a medium-sized scroll. When he does that, after that, he seals the scroll with a blood seal and another repressed seal to ensure that no one else can open it and that nothing comes out of it. As Haku put the scroll away, he remarked, "I don't know, but the place is filled with them." Haku indicated a wakizashi at his hip and said, "This is the 9th third-class sword I had to seal away, and only one of them tested knowledge and loyalty." With the wakizashi on his back hip, the katana on his back, the tanto in his pocket, and his primary weapon on his side hip, Zabuza asked, "Why are you carrying them other than sealing them up?" Haku had indeed become a sword enthusiast. As he pulled Hiranmaru away to stop an attack, Haku told him, "They wanted to be by my side, so I might as well take them." "Crush all in your path." Gojira. A massive sword that might have crushed him into a smear on the ground was deflected by Haku, who felt as though the sword would crush him. Haku pushed the sword-wielding individual back so he could get a better view of them. The woman's dark skin, curvaceous figure, long, wavy silver hair, and blue eyes make her absolutely stunning. She is dressed in a standard turtleneck sweater, black pants, Anbu's armor vest, and black high-heeled sandals. Her weapon is a massive black-green rough rock zanbato that resembles a dragon's head with an eye socket and a spike at the end that resembles a nose horn with tiny holes for a nose. "I got this?" Zabuza asked, holding his reliable Kabikari Hocho. The woman merely sneered and tightened her hold on her zanbato's handle, pulling it down to extend it and revealing sharp, jagged teeth on the blade. After a few moments of staring at the sword, Zabuza forged his resolve and prepared for battle. "I still got this." Zabuza merely prepared himself after Haku warned him, "I'd be careful, Zabuza, that zanbato she has is a class 3 and she looks like she is in control." Zabuza muttered to himself, "Thank you, Kami." He didn't want to battle a mad blade that would destroy everything in its path. One of the things Zabuza discovered while searching for these kinds of swords was that the woman and he both stood their ground, waiting for the ideal moment to fight. "What are you doing fighting our guest?" Haku and Zabuza both turned to face the woman who had spoken. Before preparing to fight, the woman said, "Sorry, mistress, but I am just finishing up." She didn't put away her zanbato, but the woman told the woman now known as Kazuato, "Don't bother Kazuato. They mean no harm." The woman told the woman sharply, "Kazuato, stand down." "Yes, mistress," Kazuato exclaimed as she strapped her zanbato to her back and it transformed into a typical-looking zanbato. Zabuza straps his Kabikari Hocho to his back and stands up. The woman in question resembled Kazuato, but she had green eyes and red hair, and she was dressed elegantly in a red kimono. "I must apologize for Kazuato, she tends to jump the gun a bit." With a sidelong glance at Zabuza, Haku added, "I understand what you mean." She introduced herself to Haku, saying, "My name is Kishina Uzumaki and this firecracker is Kazuato Uzumaki and welcome to my village. What is left of it?" Unaware that Haku is a man, Kishina innocently inquired, "And who may you be, miss?" Zabuza was making a valiant effort to contain his laughter, but he was failing miserably. Haku glared at the now loudly laughing Zabuza, saying, "I'm Haku and I'm a guy." The glare only made him laugh harder. She asked again, so innocently, "My apologies, Haku-san, and is this your servant?" As Zabuza's laughter had died and he was about to kill her, but Kazuato was there to protect Kishina. Zabuza was prevented from killing the woman when Haku emphasized the word, "subordinate," and said, "He's my subordinate Zabuza Momochi, and he tends to jump the gun." Haku and Kishina both looked at their subordinates once more and said, I can see that. May I ask what you were doing here and how you got to the island and why are you taking the dragon swords? Kishina agreed with Haku's explanation of his search for these swords in order to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands, especially since he had sealed some of them in scrolls that would keep them safe until he was strong enough to wield them. It surprised Kishina that Haku rode a water dragon to the island. He demonstrated his ability to call forth a dragon to her, and naturally, he called forth the wind dragon boss Orda. The aforementioned dragon scanned her surroundings before spotting Kishina and Kazuhato in front of her. The dragon attracted Haku's attention by saying, "I see that the Uzumaki clan is still alive." As Orda surveyed the area, Haku inquired, "What do you mean still alive and how do you know of the Uzumaki?" As the dragon nodded, Kishina turned away and said, "This is what happens to people who take power that they can't wield. Years ago, I would say about 30 or 40 years. The Uzumaki clan is one of the strongest clans in the elemental country. The clan was so powerful that they created a village away from the mainland and hidden on an island surrounded by whirlpools," Orda stated to Haku. Kishina appeared ashamed of something as she said, "Yes, our clan was powerful, not because of our skills, but because of the swords we used." The dragon turned to face Kishina and gazed out into the forest. "My clan was so power-hungry that the strongest shinobi of our clan tried to wield the blade of destruction." Kishina nodded and the dragon asked, "Is that the Ragnarok I sense?" "I see, then the Ragnarok slaughtered your clan, I assume?" "Yes, the Uzumaki clan specializes with swords, which explains the amount of dragon swords you found, Haku-san. My clan didn't know what they were getting into and I despised my clan that they were using power that was no theirs. I was the only one that trained without using a sword and because of that I was able to live after the clan's swords stopped giving my clan power before the sword actually killed everyone," Kishina said with a pause as Kazuhato, her lover. "Only I and Kazuhato survived the slaughter and we were trapped here ever since." Orda gave a head nod. "When that man tried to wield Blade of Light and Destruction, the sword had the power to make dragons quiver in her presence. That your clan's power, which is the swords, were so scared that they sealed themselves in sword-like states. You only survived the slaughter because you never practiced with your sword, I take it." As Orda glanced at Kishina's hip and noticed a sword she rarely wields, Kishina pointed to Kazuhato and said, "Yes, I was only able to get Kazuhato out alive since she was a newborn at the time and never used Uzumaki Dekisui. During our stay we noticed a few changes with our bodies. The woman should have looked older than 40 or 30, but both appeared to have been in their early 20s. Yes, the dragon blood has returned and the people of Whirlpool must have a small amount of dragon blood in their veins that would explain your young appearance. The mistress is very lenient with who gets the power of dragons. She has already found 3 of her heirs and needed 4 more." Given that Naruto's Excellion is a blade of light, Haku questioned, 7? I thought there were supposed to be 6? Haku's expression begged why this had not been clarified earlier. 1 for each element, and there are 7 elements: fire, water, wind, lightning, earth, light, and dark. These 7 must have an heir to continue on. Tia is a lazy dragon and she doesn't do her job properly. Haku recalled the time he met that dragon who would act very professional when she felt like it. "Ah," he said. Orda approached the 2 and said, "As for you two should be dead after Ragnarok killed the village, but the mistress of dragons also came from this village." Kishina gazed at the dragon and asked hopefully, "There is another survivor?" The dragon asked the boy, who nodded in understanding, "Yes, she is very powerful, strong enough to hold the power of Excellion and probably the Ragnarok if she wanted to." Haku, "Your survivor is not from Whirlpool, but born in another village. She is the offspring of the survivor. Don't expect Lady Naruto to accept you with open arms. She has enough trouble as it is." "Troubles?" Haku inquired anxiously when the dragon smirked and said, "Don't worry, your princess is fine." He blushed. Orda started out by explaining what she had done with the Hyuga clan elders, which made Zabuza shudder at the idea of those swords taking control of his body and slowly dissolving it. She just finished dealing with the people that could harm her politically. Right now she is working on a seal to finish a deal she had with the Hyuga. Orda nodded when Haku asked, "So she had to eliminate her enemies in the village?" Orda explained that she had detected 3 strong traits in those 3 students. Then she took a closer look at Kishina. "Yes, she cleaned up the council, eliminated a warmonger, gained an alliance with other clans, and gained a few more clan members. She's taking in students next year and I already know who they are since she got a profile of them," she said. "Now that I think about it," as she approached Kishina and brought her appearance closer after saying, "Hips, chest size, hands, cheekbones, lips, legs," she turned to face her. "Change the hair to white and eyes to blue. You got a carbon copy of Lady Naruto." As the Wind Dragon boss disregarded the swordsman's remark, Zabuza questioned, "What the hell you talking about, dragon?" The dragon gestured to the woman who was uncomfortable in the spotlight, saying, "Just look at her." Haku imagined it, and he turned away to cover up his blush and nosebleed. "Just change the hair color and eyes and you got Naruto in front of you." I see Haku-san got the picture. Kishina asked Orta, "What do you mean that the survivor is an Uzumaki?" And Orta gave her another look. She changed her name from Uzumaki to Ryu to hide from her parents' enemies and create a new clan. She is doing fine with the clan and the mastery of the elements. She reached your level of control with ice from 2 years ago, Haku-san. Orta stated to Haku, who had healed his nosebleed. Haku expressed his amazement at Naruto's ability to reach that level in just 2 years, saying, "Naruto-chan reached that level already." Orta told Haku, sounding somewhat proud of her degree of skill, "She already masters Inferno and Boil with average control over Storm, Chaos, Crystal, and Wood. In another year she would have those 4 mastered." Zabuza muttered to himself, "Great, bad enough that she has mastery of the 5 elements." Kishina and Kazuhato appeared surprised that someone would possess such a high level of control over the sub-elements. Both were aware that even with mastery control, something like this would not be feasible. Even if it were feasible, learning a vast number of techniques would be too much for the mind to process. The mind functions similarly to a library. If it becomes overloaded, it will begin to delete unnecessary files or memories to prevent information overload and the person from going insane from having too much information. How, then, is this Naruto able to remain sane while carrying around all that knowledge? Orta gestured to Haku's stack of scrolls and said, "I'll take those if you want." Haku nodded and sealed them in a larger sealing scroll that Naruto had given him. Orta grabbed the scrolls containing the dragon swords and clamped one of them in each of her wing claws. As Haku nodded his head, Orta questioned, "Is that all of them?" In a matter of seconds, they all heard a loud boom as Orta spread her wings and shot into the air, saying, "Then my job is done here." Zabuza broke the silence by saying, "Well, there goes the messenger." Before making his way to the camp they had set up, he said, "I'm heading back to the cave to check on the brothers." When the young man nodded, Kishina said, "Would you like some tea, Haku-san? Please follow me." Kazuhato watched Kishina closely to make sure he didn't make any mistakes, and Haku followed him. Kishina said to Kazuhato, who had to turn away when she looked at her, "Kazuhato, stop giving him the stare, you're making us both uncomfortable." Nodding, Haku said, "Please forgive her, she is kind of protective of me." He pondered whether he should leave the island altogether. Zabuza was at least wise enough to go. Haku pondered as he followed Kishina around. At Konoha, Naruto read the 3 files of her students and exclaimed, "Now I should have been the one to kill that old bastard, instead." "How bad is it?" Anko inquired, looking through the 3 former recruits or root members' files. Naruto took out a file and showed Anko a picture, saying, "They all suffered from Danzo. Itamadome, or Itami for short, has suffered from Danzo's brainwashing and suffered mild side effects after Inoichi finished to brainwash her. Right now she is cold, calculate and protective, deadly with a blade and very strong in taijutsu." Upon examining the image, Anko noticed a silver-haired, spiky girl with red eyes who appeared somewhat athletic and had a stern expression on her face. After opening the file and reading it, she noticed something that caught her eye. Hitaki? Yup. Danzo got his hands on Tsukumo Hitaki's body and used his soldiers to get someone pregnant, and she is the result. Lucky we got rid of Danzo or we would all be in trouble. Kakashi is looking after her and seems to look at her as a little sister, Naruto said as she continued with the next pupil. "The girl's name is Mian or Fate if you want to be literal." Anko saw a blonde with red eyes and a somewhat slender appearance in the photo, but she knew something was wrong because of her background. Anko merely scoffed at the statement. "Fate is the fastest student in the academy, faster than the Uchiha kid." "Yeah, besides that she has a condition." Anko examined the file to determine her condition. Her body produces electricity and shocks anyone who comes into contact to her. Not just anyone her body thinks is a threat. She doesn't shock her friends like Itame. Fate is an experiment by Danzo. The bastard shocked a pregnant woman 24/7 until she died giving birth to her. I don't know how she survived, but because of that treatment Fate has developed a very high affinity to lightning and has one time seen that she unleashed a plasma shot. Naruto pulled out an image of a tree with an enormous hole that had been burned. As she examined the image more closely, Anko questioned, "Plasma, what elements are used for that one?" "Fire, wind, and lightning are the elements. I haven't even reached the high-level elements, and she did it like it was nothing, but lacked the control." The old council tried to get her into a breeding program, but that was thrown out of the window by the Hokage, stating that she could feel threatened and start killing anyone that comes near her, which is very true if you have a scared child with the ability to manipulate lightning at mastery level. Her state of mind is very timid and shy, but with Itame's help she is able to get her out of her shell. Naruto was holding the final document briefly before she gave it to Anko. As she opened the file and examined the image, Anko questioned, "What's so special about this one? You have got to be kidding me?" As she examined the photo, Naruto remarked, "No, I am not. I don't know how he did it, but he succeeded. He was able to get a sample of my DNA." Anko nodded and glanced at the image, which showed Naruto in miniature according to the information in the file. Danzo took her and used her for experiments. Images of her former appearance have long since vanished. Her long, cobalt blue hair, which is tied in two pigtails that reach her legs, is what separates them. The two black horns that protrude from the side of her head, curve upward, and terminate in two neon blue tips, are the picture's most striking feature. Naruto nodded, and Anko remarked, "The picture alone screams dragon blood. She ain't pure born or given dragon blood, so her main element is dark because of the unnaturalness of her dragon blood. Her powers are uncontrolled and chaotic. The Hokage had to put a genjutsu on the horns to have her have a decent academy life. We all know how cruel kids can be." Naruto breathed a sigh of relief as she collapsed. Remilia Azure is her name. When Anko looked at the photo, she remarked, "Odd name. What the hell is she wearing?" Anko was about to continue talking about the girl when Naruto said, "Don't know, it looks like a kimono, but it is not and looked frilly from what the academy instructors said. She is very maneuverable in it." Then she felt something rub against her leg. She noticed a tiny dragon the size of a kitten on her leg. Reaching down, Anko picked up the small hatchling and asked, "Where do you get these guys?" As she removed the hatchling from Anko's arms and examined it, Naruto remarked, "I felt like having another one and Narga needed company." The hatchling in question resembles Narga, but it is white, has scales in place of fur, spikes on its back, and tiny teeth in its upper front jaw that resemble saber teeth. From what Tia said, this little guy is an ice version of Nargacuga. Hungry already, Bari? When the hatchling let out a little meow that sounded somewhat echoed, Naruto found it adorable and began smothering it. Looking at Naruto, Anko hoped the genin would never be able to finish that mission, or that the little guy wouldn't take Tora's place as the current cat. The sound of wings flapping and a crash in the rear interrupted Naruto's attempt to smother the small hatchling. As Naruto made her way to the back door to meet the Wind Boss Dragon, she thought to herself, Haku already sent a message. Oh, hey Orda, what did Haku summon you for? Orda released two large scrolls from its wing claws and said, "Nothing much, I'm just here to drop off his hundreds of dragon swords from first to third class swords he found." Gazing at the two enormous scrolls that could contain an enormous number of swords, Naruto remarked, "Sheesh, that many, where did he go? A sword convention." Regarding her friend in Anbu, Anko told Naruto, Yugao would have been discussing it for the past month if there was a sword convention. One of the Kenjutsu experts from Konoha who is responsible for Naruto's skill is the aforementioned woman, her boyfriend, Hayate Gecko, is also a Kenjutsu expert, and Naruto gladly agreed to teach her some techniques. She is a proud woman who is confident enough to ask for training from someone more experienced. Anko has cheerfully called Hayate Gecko a few times since she first met him. Regardless of whether he is ill or coughing, his training is hampered by a lung condition that causes him to cough. With training in taijutsu, ninjutsu, fuinjutsu, kenjutsu, medical jutsu, and chakra-based training, Naruto is an all-around shinobi who is ignorant of seduction and genjutsu. She doesn't think she needs genjutsu or seduction training, though. In any case, she has extensive medical knowledge and created a medication that would aid in Hayate's lung clearance. He is taking the medication as prescribed, and the only times he coughs are when he is extremely stressed. His lungs will be cleared in a few more weeks, and he will soon begin more advanced training that he has been refused. In relation to instructing non-Ryu clan members, Naruto has been teaching Hikaru and her pup how to manipulate fire. The aforementioned girl, who was unsure of how she accomplished it, was able to transform her Fang over Fang technique into a more deadly fire tornado than the standard Fang technique. Hikaru has combined her family's taijutsu with fire manipulation as well. After examining her training, the Inuzuka clan discovered that incorporating their primary elements into their techniques could increase their lethality. However, because they are too late in developing their elements, only the following generation can undergo this training. Because of Naruto's connection to the Inuzuka clan, she has also investigated the element of Tsume's sun and discovered that it is lightning. She only gave him battery recharges for his training, and Hikaru begins by melting an iron bar. Naruto believed that Hikaru could survive fire if she trained diligently. The Hyuga clan, well, she released the cage bird seal and has cultivated a relationship with them by teaching them water and earth training and medical techniques. Other than going out to drink with Shikaku and his friends whenever she has free time, she hasn't developed any relationships with the other clans. Naruto recoiled at the mention of the Uzumaki name. He went to an island called the Whirlpool Country and found them all lying around. He also found the two last members of the Uzumaki clan. Naruto simply nodded before taking the scrolls and shining them to her office. They're currently with Haku, and from what I have seen, one of them look like an adult version of you with a few color changes and has the blood of dragons in their veins. Anko asked the thoughtful-looking dragon, "So, what is this Haku like? What do you want to know?" Alongside Naruto, Tenten peeked into Naruto's office and said, "Hey sis, do you have any storage scrolls one could borrow?" Naruto simply pointed to a table while focusing on a scroll in front of her, saying, "There are some on the table over there." Tenten questioned Naruto about collecting metal, saying, "Hey sis, can you help me with gathering high-density metal later on?" Tenten owed Naruto a significant amount, which was to give her own forge. The girl has developed an interest in crafting her own weapons. She will eventually be able to create weapons on par with Kabikari Hocho. Tenten merely pouted when Naruto told him, "Like I said Tenten, I will only gather you metal until you reach a level that can rival swords like the Kabikari Hocho." Naruto turned to face Tenten, who shot back, "But you can add seals to make it as deadly like the Kabikari Hocho." Tenten remained silent as Naruto lectured him, "And that is the point. I don't want you to rely on my seals. The sword is only as good as the person who makes them." "Tenten?" she asked, noticing that nobody was at the door returning to her notes. She muttered, "That girl." As she shuffled through her father's notes, she thought to herself, "Uzumaki. I know Dad wrote that name around here somewhere." Returning to Tenten, Tenten said to the older woman, who ought to be dressed less provocatively, "Hey Anko, can you help me gather some metal?" Anko patted the two ninjatus on her hips and said, "No can do Brad. I'm still working on gathering iron, and that is difficult as hell, and I am still learning how to hold these two girls." Anko waved to Tenten and melted to the ground, exiting the area after saying, "Besides, I have to go back to the I&T department today." Tenten asked the wind boss, who was lying on the ground playing with the white hatchling, "Hey Orda, know any fire dragons that could help me out?" As she pushed the hatchling playfully on its side and watched it attempt to flip upright, Orda said, "Fire dragons that could help you, not that I know of, but I do know you can melt material together to make them stronger." Tenten posed the question, "Melt material together, but won't that make it heavier?" As if sensing something, the dragon looked up and Orda said, "Heavier and stronger, yes. This way you can practice or experiment with such melts." Orda puffed out of existence and left Tenten and the hatchling alone, saying, "I got to go Tenten, I have a meeting to attend to." Tenten took hold of the hatchling and petted it as it quickly fell asleep in her arms, saying, "Well Bari, it's just you and me." The mindscape of Naruto. "Good, Orda, you're here," Tia said as Orda stepped into the 4-story building that had grown in size in Naruto's imagination. "Now that everyone is here, we are to discuss that it is time to leave Naruto's mind." Volvagia, unwilling to leave Naruto's thoughts, cried out, "What? No way am I leaving her mind. She needs us and she isn't ready to have the full dragon blood yet." With a calm and commanding voice that gave her a powerful appearance, Leviathan stated, "We have nothing more to teach her, Volva. She needs to handle this on her own. The only dragons that could help her with this change are either Excellion or Tiamat." A worried Volvagia asked, But what if she loses her mind? Because she didn't want to leave knowing what would happen." Huang Long attracted the attention of the other tenants by saying, "If we continue to stay in her mind, we will only cause more harm to her. Our presence in here is holding back her dragon form. If we continue to stay, we will only guarantee that she will go on a rampage." Tia nodded to the elderly gentleman. As the other dragons concurred with her and waited for Tia's response, Volvagia went on, "How are we going to teach her the higher elements then?" Tia's commanding voice caused the other dragons to relax. "That is what summoning is for. When she feels like learning the higher elements, that she will summon us." Jin said, "You're leaving as well." However, the dragon's sorrowful nod made it sound more like a declaration. She gestured to the library, where she saw a scroll appear and arrange itself, saying, "Afraid so. Her mind is so calm and organized that I am no longer needed here. The only one that could stay is Excellion or any other dragon sword she carries." Orda said, attracting the attention of the other dragons, "Oh, that reminds me. I know where the other divine dragon blade is." Alongside Naruto, Uzumaki Kushina Naruto pondered as she read her parents' name. Thus, when the old man claimed that she was just as lethal as Fatalis, he wasn't lying. As she read about her mother's reputation and history during the Third Shinobi War, she pondered. Her mother has earned a reputation that not even her father has attained. Although he used a single jutsu to kill thousands of Iwa shinobi, her mother can use taijutsu, ninjutsu, and kenjutsu to defeat an equal number of shinobi. Her mother is a goddamn tank, but her father is undoubtedly a genius. She possessed strength comparable to Tsunade, skill comparable to Salamander Hanzo, and chakra comparable to 3 Cages Hell. She might have been the Yondaime, but the council didn't trust her because she was a foreign shinobi. Naruto's decision to disband that council was a wise one. The new generation is coming in, and the old generation is going out. The fact that she accomplished all of this without using dragon blood bothered her. A true shinobi, she was. Although she possessed dragon-derived techniques, she lacked the scales, senses, strength, control, and other characteristics of a dragon. Kushina Uzumaki is a living example of diligence. She only respected her mother more as a result of this. Then there is her dad, though Minato Namikaze is another name for the Yondaime Hokage in terms of battle tactics and techniques. The man is considered a genius. Hell, he invented the Hiraishin technique and the Rasengan. She finished the Rasengan after mastering it, but the Hiraishin is now the issue. After spending most of her time trying to figure it out, she eventually developed her own fast precision technique, known as Shunpo, but it was nowhere near as good as the Hiraishin. She spent most of her time trying to figure out the technique because she was dangerous enough with Shunpo or Flash Step. According to what she has read, the Hiraishin technique is more akin to the body flicker technique, albeit with a wider range. If she had to guess, it would be similar to reverse summoning, but she wasn't positive. She did know, however, that it had to do with time and space rather than rapid movement. It was more akin to calling her to that object than it was to calling an object to her. She might be able to identify what she is doing incorrectly if she keeps doing this. Perhaps at a later date. Naruto pondered as she rose from her chair and collapsed to her knees, gasping for air. The mindscape of Naruto. As the other dragons nodded their heads, Tia declared, "It is decided, Excellion." She glanced at the dragon sword, which gave her a nod just before the 6 dragons vanished into thin air, leaving Excellion alone. She uttered the words, "Keep her safe." Excellion looked out and saw that the house was motionless, and the area was trembling. While the outside changed, it was the only place that would stay. As she sat down in front of a table to sip tea and waited for Naruto to complete the transformation, she pondered, "I wonder what her mind will turn into when she turns into a dragon." Alongside Naruto, she felt as though a weed hacker was tearing off her entire body, splattering her with sulfuric acid, and injecting her with liquid nitrogen, making it impossible for her to think clearly. Her body felt like that, freezing on the inside and melting and shredding on the outside. She then noticed white scales under her skin when she looked at her arm and felt as though her body was painfully stretching. When Naruto attempted to call for assistance, she only grunted or growled. Then, as though struck by a tsunami, she let out a loud roar that echoed throughout the village as she felt a wave of pain. The mindscape of Naruto. She sipped her tea thoughtfully and thought to herself, "She's taking on that form." As the world outside the house transformed into a world of perpetual mist with pebbles on the ground as the only source of ground, Excellion thought, "I thought she would take a wyvern form or an elder form, but this is getting very interesting. Maybe I should have Ragnarok join me in here. Definitely get Ragnarok in here. Better hurry, Naruto, and gain control of that form, or this misty world will forever be your mindscape."
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.